Yes, yes, yes. Let me cut this down. It is officially fantastically unofficial. My first day out gate with this. I hope y'all can hear me right now. Get some folks up in this room because I got some to talk about. You heard me. Did you hear me? Hold on, I gotta make sure I'm on my other one too. I want to get on my YouTube. I should make sure I'm on my YouTube. Oh yeah, I am. Come on in, y'all. Oh wait, tell a friend, bring somebody up in here because it's going down. It's going down. You see the title? You see the title? Man, oh man, I'm tired of the games today. If you in here, please push a share, a like, or something, and add someone. I can't tell if you in here unless you give me some action. Okay, so it's going down today. I'm going to talk to you about a few things. And actually, I also have my link in here. Feel free to pop on in. Let me put the link on here. Excuse me. Oh, the link is in the description. It is in the description. So yeah, pop on in if you want to chime in. Today, pretty much you already see what it is. Well, first of all, this page is about just what it is. Saying what the hell you want to say. You know, you guys know I do business and stuff like that. So I didn't want to saturate my business page with my personal thoughts and stuff like that. As you see, what the hat says, I am crafting for mental health. If you are not able to work on your mental health, you know that stuff is serious, and you could really be. Let me cut this one off and put the other air on. You could really be hit up. So I take my mental health serious, and I'm not. I can't. You can't hold things in all the time. Sometimes you gotta vent. Feel me? You're gonna hear the air pop on. Sometimes you have to vent, and you have to find outlets. You know, that's why I like doing. That's why I'm sharing too, y'all. That's why I like doing uh, entrepreneurial shows and stuff like that because one, I want to share the stuff that I know with other entrepreneurs, and two, it keeps me busy. You know what I'm saying? It gives me it helps. It keeps me busy. You know what I'm saying? It definitely keeps me busy, and it's like what do you call it? It's like the medicine. It's almost like when you're sitting on the couch, therapy. It's like therapy, y'all. So I'm sharing right now. I'm about to go to my group page. This is my group. The group is a public group, and it's called Fantastically Unfiltered. So I would appreciate if you guys join the group. We only got like 25 people in there. This again is my first live that I'm doing, and well, I don't see it. This is the first live I'm doing. I don't see it filming though. I don't see it filming. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this right now anyway. But yeah, I really want to be filming in that page, y'all. So give me a minute. Y'all go ahead and share some stuff. Get somebody in here. I'm gonna be talking about my brothers today. I got threatened in my inbox today by some dude I went to school with. Yeah, it's kind of like one of those days. Let me put some background music on. Y'all gotta make sure y'all come in here because this is where I'm gonna be from here on out. You feel me? This is how it's gonna be from here on out. I gotta make sure I'm filming live here. I should be live right now. Yeah, girl and boys. I got threatened. Oh, I'm gonna put them up there. You're gonna see it. I'm gonna show you exactly what was good. Okay, that's YouTube. Where's the group at? I needed to do it to the group too. Damn. Let me add it. Can I add a group? Oh yeah, it's the group. Might get a little stutter. Let me get this in. And I told the dude, yo, I'm doing a show about you, bro. I'm doing a show. You're gonna be in the show. You don't threaten me. You know I'm trained to go. This is crazy. This one. This the group I want. Oh, already added. Okay, I guess I am sharing to that group. I don't see it though. I don't see it. If you in the building, let your girl know. Let your girl know. Let me finish getting this share off. I know I'm on my YouTube page. I got that one. I can't tell if this here is if it's live, y'all. That's what I'm trying to see. That's what I'm trying to see right now. Talk to me. I'll talk back. I don't understand why it's not there, but I'm gonna still go. I really didn't want it on my YouTube, that's all. But everything else was good. Okay, let me share this with my joint. All right. I'm gonna go ahead in. Got the background music again. I'm gonna put my own music in here too. Y'all know I ain't gonna be listening to these people's stuff. I'm still independent and about that independence. You know what I'm saying? Don't get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. It's supposed to be filming live to that page. I don't see it on this page, but anyway, I'm not gonna sweat it. I shared it, and I'll just leave it at that. So anyway, I'm about to start this show. And again, it's your girl Frankie Baby Fantastic, and I will come back. I'm gonna talk to y'all a little bit about why I created this. I gave you a little bit, and we're gonna get into my little rant and raving today. All right. So let me hang out. Let me share this a little bit more with somebody. They told me to let them know. So I want to be sure to let them know. Okay, here we go. All right, let me shut the music down. And let's start this show, y'all. Let's start the show. I don't know how long I'm going to be, but I'm going to be until I feel better. I'm venting today, and this is how I vent. All right, let me get my headphones together so I don't get no bleed or no feedback. But yes, I plan on talking my stuff today. The reason I created this show is because, like you all know, I do a lot of business, and I don't want my clients and everything to be bombarded with my personal feelings and my personal rants and stuff, personal opinions, personal views. And then again, it's really not. I'm not really. I work for myself, so it's not like I'm going to lose my job because of my personal views. But I plan on venting. All right. So here we go. Let's start the show. Please push share. And that person that's in there, put some thumbs up. Let me see you in there, baby. Let's start the show. sound for everything. So clap it up. I know. I gotta finish the intro. Whatever. Come on, I gotta finish the intro. It's fantastically unfiltered. What else can I say? Let's go. I'm still do the show. Come on. It's fantastically unfiltered. What? What's up, family? Yes, I did not finish the pre pre-show. That thing you saw, I gotta finish it. And you see I'm working dolo. So I'm gonna get right to it, y'all. I got some videos. Let me put this video up. I had to compile my stuff and put it in the video so I can show you on this platform. And right off the back, I'm tired of people trash, yo. I got threatened today in my inbox by some dude named Leland. Oh, I call names. I don't care about none of that shit. And yeah, like I'll show you better than I can tell you. So I'm gonna show you all the stuff. And I also was saving some stuff. I got another guy in my inbox talking about Leland mentioned my sexuality. Another guy mentioned my beliefs. And then I got a video. One of my homegirls, a guy just destroyed the apartment. You feel me? I'm so sick of men and their aggression. And anybody know me, you know I love my brothers. You feel me? I mean, in fact, all I do is hang out with dudes. These are my fellas, you know. Now, not every man is like this, okay? But I am tired of all you little pinions who are angry. I don't know why you're angry. Well, I kind of do know why you're angry. But let me show you. I'm going to show you what the hell went down, took place. So that's why I created this channel, because, I mean, I've been creating the channel, but I just can't. I took all I can stands, and I just can't stands no more. So I had to come up with this thing, y'all, because the shit is just not fair. You feel me? So if you in the room, I'm on a few platforms. So please just give me a thumbs up, y'all. I appreciate it. Now, let me show this before I get into the ignorant shit. You feel me? Because I still got to be on point with mine. You know what I'm saying? So let me show you this. Oh, and there's a link in the description. If you want to come on here, feel free. You can come on. In fact, if you could share this with the people I'm talking about too. Hey, let's talk. All right, here we go. Let me show you this real quick. Hold on. Oh, shoot. Is making new synaptic connections. Hold on, let me tell you. Oh, so this doctor is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a guy that I watch all the time. And you're going to see these little things here. I'll let him tell you. But when they connect, that's us learning something new, okay? But check it out, y'all. Check this out. Something new. This is what's happening in your brain, geniuses. If you learned one bit of information today, your brain did this. Boom. That's learning. Physical evidence as a result of your interaction in the environment. That's dope. Every time you learn something in your brain, there's a physical change that takes place, and learning is making new connections. Are you with me? Don't mind that. So look, he's gonna show you again. This is how fast it happens, too. Look at that. That's learning. You just learned something, see? This week, you've made a footprint. If learning. So that's learning, right? So the stuff, this page is created for people who aren't learning any damn thing. I deal with a lot of people every day. So let me just get into it right now. As you see this say, I just put this video together because I can't just come up and not have some material. I can't just throw it up there. I really have to do something. I ain't even put no sound in this. But here, let's start here with this guy. So let me push pause. So this guy, Leland, I went to school with him, all right? He had a post up that says, Black women are starting to look like a clown, but I'm tripping. Now, I usually try not. Am I frozen? I'm frozen. What the fuck? Sorry, y'all. Hold on. Why am I frozen? Okay, there I go. Am I not frozen now? Can you hear me? I know you can still hear me. But why am I still frozen? Okay, there we go. Can you see me now? I switched the camera on you. It ain't nothing but a thing. All right, we caught up now. Okay, yeah, we caught up now. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I got two cameras. If it go out, just let me know. I will I'll keep an eye on it, but I will change cameras. I got a camera in here. Yo, so look, and I just simply came under his post and I was like, what do you mean? And then he was like, so I'm gonna give a commentary. I do not need to explain it because I see clowns. Bottom line. Like, damn, that's crazy. Like, and me and him, like, literally, I've offered this guy a job because I know he don't look like, I'm cool. I'm nice with the brothers. I do not diss my brothers. You feel me? There's reasons for that. But anyway, I said, y'all men are getting more angry by the second. Y'all can't get y'all eggplant wet, so y'all mad at women. Meanwhile, y'all out here looking like Pillsbury Doughboys. Leave these women alone. Check the men. We are good out here, right? That's what I said without apology, because he just came at me all freaking mean, right? Then he went in my inbox and threatened me. Hold on. Before he deleted me. Hold on. Let me let you see the rest of this. Hollins. His name is Leland. Nathaniel Hollins. All right, here we go. Hold on. This is crazy. I can't believe he's acting like this. So disappointed. And on top of the other shit, I just couldn't take no more. So look, here's the inbox. This is in my messenger. Now, first of all, he gonna say, look here. Now, I don't like arguing with anybody. You shouldn't argue with anybody that starts off by saying, look here. That's just fucking crazy. But he says, look here, don't speak to me look here, don't speak on me because I'm not that nigga you want to fuck with. I don't speak on gay women, so stay out of my face with the bullshit. As if to say that I got a problem with my gayness. Now, anybody that know me know that I don't have a problem with no gayness. See, I don't know what him saying that had to do with anything, because hold on, y'all. I don't know what him saying that has to do with anything, because, like, bro, I should have added this video. This should have been the video. So let me get rid of this. Hold on, y'all. I had added the wrong thing. That's why it paused. But when a man bring up your gayness, let me get back to where it was at. He bring up my gayness, like I'm supposed to have a problem with that, right? Hold on. Let me get to the other one. Uh-oh, I went too far. Hold on. All right, what do you mean? This is where I was. It's going to go to another one. Let me fast forward it. It should be going right now. Okay. Now, without apology, you feel me? I have no problem letting somebody know that I'm gay. I walk through this world gay, proud. In fact, this is how I walk when ain't nobody looking. When you're not looking, I become.
Left foot is lit. The left foot is lit. The left foot is lit.
Okay. Now, do that look like I'm scared to be gay? Does me walking in look like I'm ashamed of any of my gayness? Not at all. Not at all. So again, he brings up that he said he didn't say nothing about new connections about gay, but you said something about black women. That I am. And I was a black woman before I decided to like women. Okay. I was a black sister, a female, before I decided that, hey, I like women. All right. So you are talking to me. And then I simply replied to him, what the hell or what the fuck? I ain't do that right. What are you talking about? I'm a woman. Why are you so upset? I guess the truth hurts. Okay. And then I got blocked. And I posted, I think I made it before I got blocked. I basically told him if he want action, he got action. And this is me putting in action today because I am talking about him. And I say, are you lucky I screenshot everything? Because I knew he's a type of, when guys post this type of rhetoric up, more than likely they are upset. They're upset because for something. More than likely they're not getting no wet. I'm just keeping real. No wet. And then you get upset and you want to diss all the women. Okay. So that's really what's going on. I could see through that bullshit. And this is him. Okay, this is him. This is the guy who's talking all the trash about me, right? This is him every day. This on the left side is him a little dressed up. And you talking about women are looking like clowns. Boy, if you don't look at yourself in the mirror. See, most people want to talk about famous people will be on TV, the rhetoric of what's going on in the world. I'm not that person. I'm going to talk about you. I'm going to talk about you. You. Trying to play me, trying to act like, you not even play me. I was trying to have a dialogue, a real dialogue with the brother. But he chose to talk trash and he chose to threaten me in my inbox. So obviously, this is the type of energy he respects. So I'm not going, he doesn't want to have a conversation. He'd rather just threaten women. You feel me? And just for the record, I'm not one of those type of girls who some women date men. They've been with men. Hell, you guys, my father, even with my father, I'm not one of those type of girls who submit. Like I have some goddess. I have these goddesses in me. You feel me? These forgotten goddesses. I'm not one of those girls who's gonna be like, when you yell, I'm gonna get all scared and shit. I meet you where you at. You understand? So some women, when they hear men yell, they get beside themselves. They be like, "Oh, shut up." I don't have that. When God was giving that stuff out, I didn't get in that line. Okay. So when you fuck with me, you gonna get fucked with back. Period. You feel me? And if you think you gonna touch me, then you feel me? We can go there too. They got places for you, for people who like to beat up women. You feel me? It's a shame that as a kid I played basketball and I always had to fight guys and shit like that. I'm not trying to get my self all battered by no dude at this age. Is you crazy? Not that I was getting battered at that age. I was handling my business. But we're adults, so we're smart. It ain't no fighting thing. But if you can talk trash and belittle someone and pick and tease, well, damn it, you're going to get that same energy back at you. Now, the problem comes when you can't take the energy coming back towards you. And then you want to put your hands on somebody. Well, they got places like that. It's called fucking jail. Okay? Jail. That's what it's called. Let's go on. Let's continue on. These goddamn people, man. I've had enough with y'all. Angry men. This is what today's topic is about. I don't know why they so freaking angry. I do have something else I want to show you, and I have a thought of where I think it come from. Now here's another guy. This is another guy, Solomon. I don't know this man. I don't know him from a can of paint. I don't know what would make him come into my inbox and start razzing me about my beliefs. Okay, I don't know, but I wasn't trying to be rude either. See. He says, "Good afternoon, Frankie. I see this forum is for business only." So he was on one of my other pages, my business page. See? And do you have a forum for questions like, do you believe in the Bible? Well, I guess this would be the forum, Solomon. So if you know this guy, tag him. I don't know who he is. I didn't even look him up. I say immediately, how can I help you? He says, I came across one of your video clips one day where you stated that women should lead and men can't. I want to have a discussion about that subject with you. And I said, I'm not sure what video you're referring to, but sounds about right. Ooh, I love my humor. Sounds about right. How are you, brother? What would you like to discuss? Yo, I love it. Let me read it again. I'm not sure what video you are referring to, but that sounds about right. How are you, brother? What would you like to discuss? I say, right? He said, I like to ask, why do you feel strongly that women should lead? And then he says, and do you believe in the Bible? Why people always want to go for the Bible all the time? That's day one. Ain't nobody studying shit past that. The Bible, what I say? I said women always led. The Bible is fairly new, which it is. and it is plagiarized. All right, let me continue on. They always want to go to the Bible because that's the one that gives them justification for their fuckery. It is plagiarized. I must have this out of order a little bit, y'all. But anyway, he goes into King Solomon. He starts talking about King Solomon. Love many strange women together with the daughter of the Pharaoh. He goes into all of this, women of the Moabites, all of this stuff. He just bombards me. I don't even know how did we get to this. Really, I don't. He just asked me if I believe the Bible, and I said it was plagiarized. How do you? Okay, let me get to this. Not go into them. Neither shall they come unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart. Okay, I guess that's some more rhetoric from the Bible. Then he says, how do you call yourself what you claim, but can't stand firm in your beliefs? When I'm history, I guess he meant when in history did women lead and was successful like in wars? And I'm not trying to be condescending. Would you be equipped to fight in wars? Oh, Jesus. Solomon, I fought in a war. I fought in a Bosnian war. Did you fight in a war? Where were you? I fought for this country. I've been in war. And even in war, I was selective about the brothers that I choose around me. The brothers that I choose, the brothers that I hang with are real soldiers, real revolutionaries, and real thinking men. Okay? Thinking men. And I don't know. But anyway, I was like, they are patriarchal doctrines. Okay, I'm done talking to you. Have a good day. So it might be a little out of order here. Okay? So just stay with me, though. I'm trying to get him off my line now because he's just going in on some nonsense, right? So, here it is. I said it's plagiarized directly from the Emerald Tablets. Have you studied any of the original texts? That's what I was saying about the Bible. It's plagiarized from the Emerald Tablets. And I asked him, have you studied any of the original texts? Not the Bible, the original text, okay? People always want to go to that Bible immediately. Guys, this thing was plagiarized. And if that's something that you guys believe in, you should want to go deeper into the studies and figure out or find out or study where this stuff comes from. You feel me? So he says, yes, I have. What Emerald Tablets are you referring to? And what nation did it come from? Now, wait a minute right there. I asked him, have you studied? I said, this plagiarized directly from the Emerald Tablets. Have you studied any of the original texts? He says, yes, I have. Then he says, what Emerald Tablets? What the hell? What are you? I just asked you a question. You said you have, and then what Emerald Tablets and what nation did it come from? So you don't even know what I'm talking about right now. What Emerald Tablets? There's only one emerald. There's only one set of tablets called the Emerald Tablets. And then I said, are you familiar with Thoth? He says, yeah, yes, ancient Kemet. Now, Thoth can be in Kemet, Mesopotamian. Thoth is old school. In fact, that's where Jesus in the Bible, his wording in the Bible is plagiarized straight from Thoth. Then I says, then you should know that he is the author of the Emerald Tablets. Then he comes back and asks me, are you familiar with where the understanding came from? It was founded by John Francois Chameleon. Familiar with that name? Now, let me pause right there. That's the problem with some of these brothers, yo. Instead of getting into the dialogue, he's beating me down about my beliefs. So I'm asking you, have you studied something? Do you know something? Because this is where I'm getting it from. And then he in turn come back, well, do you know this? Why do it have to be a sword fight? You feel me? You haven't even covered what I'm asking. You came to me, you asking me something, and I'm giving you some context. But you're not engaging me in my shit. In fact, you're only trying to compare wit. You see? You're comparing wit, which lets me know it's an ego. Your ego's starting to get into you now. Oh, did you know this? That shit is ridiculous. I can't stand when people do shit like that, because it'd be a piss contest. Then it's not even we're not even building anymore. You feel me? Anyway, and at this point, I'm really over this conversation. I'm trying to get off the conversation. I am hold on. Familiar with the name? Are you saying your nationality is Egyptian? I am. I understand exactly. It's funny because this was when he was talking about the King Solomon. This was placed in the wrong place. Even King Solomon worship. I got the wrong name in here. Ishtar is what I was trying to say. A goddess, or Astoreth, a goddess. But was it right? And what tribe did King Solomon come from? See what I'm saying? You beat me down with all this Solomon stuff, and I tell you that's crazy that you mentioned Solomon because he worshiped goddesses. Then you say, well, was it right? What the freak are we talking about? This is what I'm saying is ego, and it's just ego. I don't rock like that, bro. I don't rock like that. Okay, what are we saying? I don't know. He says these doctrines aren't his. He didn't write them. Mother Earth still needs seeds for things to grow out of her, right? I'm telling them the doctrines are all patriarchal doctrines because he was talking about the Bible. You feel me? Okay, I say I'm done talking to you. Good day. Feel me? He laughs. Where does the seed come from? Again, the questions. He never answered one of my questions. You can bring forth life all by yourself. Oh, you can't bring forth life all by yourself. He don't know science. Where does the seed come from? Oh, I copied that again. You need a man whom supplies the seed to enter into you. Simple science. Okay. And I sent him a YouTube. It was probably the Queen Maker. And then I say, I do not subscribe to your doctrines. And he says, I'm not here to convince you either. Just picking your brain. He's not picking my brain. He was getting on my freaking nerve with nonsense. And like I told you, that was all ego. All ego. I gave him a fair answer. You know what I'm saying? The Bible was plagiarized. So if you want to know what I study, are you familiar with the Emerald Tablets? Yes. Well, what tablets? What the fuck? You understand what I'm saying? So it's ego. And I don't get it. I mean, I do get it, but it gets on my nerve, y'all, and I run into it a lot. And then I think this was the last one I said, look, well, I'm well versed in my studies. You can believe how you like. I know what I know. I have a direct connection to the divine feminine energy. She is alive and doing well. Peace and blessings to you and yours. You understand? Like, gosh, I don't get it, y'all. And then at the end of his conversation, he finally brought it up. You need seed to be put into you. Listen, I came in a nation of gods on earth. And it was brothers back in the day talking about you got to have a God, you got to have a man to have the consciousness and all this other stuff. That was the pretext for them to sleep with you and you make you their queen. Miss me with that. That shit, that's the most bogus stuff I've ever heard. Most bogus stuff I've ever heard. Now, I'm going to take a quick break before I get into this next one. I'm going to show you a video of one of the homies. Her place was ransacked. She shares a place with this guy. Matter of fact, I'll just go into it. We'll go into it. She shares a place with this guy. Excuse me. She shares a place with a gentleman. Well, I shouldn't use the word. I'm using it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find some background music. I'm using the word gentleman loosely. Okay. I don't know the full details of their story. It's not my business. I don't live there. But what I'm addressing is the aggressive, over aggressive behavior that you had towards a woman. Now I'm gonna share this with you. She did tell me this. She did tell me, she said when she has her female company over in the room, hold on, here I come. She says when she has her female company over in the room, he's like, hold on, y'all, I'm trying to fix this. I gotta do this better. When she has her female company over in the room and they're loud or something, he'll throw a shoe out the bedroom window, basically saying, shut up. Crazy. That's crazy behavior right there, right? But when she has her male company over in the room and they loud just the same, he don't do nothing. He just grin and bear it. And this is the type of platform I'm talking about. Like, again, I'm not talking about all my brothers. I love my brothers. But I'm talking about some of you weak, spineless, you can't compete against other men. I'm talking about you guys, those guys. You feel me? Those are the ones that always give you the problems. Give me the problems, and I've noticed give every woman the problem, most women the problem. Because real men, stand-up guys aren't going to behave this way. I know. I've been around them. So I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to just show you this video right now. And it's sad because, oh, wait, let me get into it. So he'll say nothing when the men are over. So they was arguing. They had a little tiff, right? And she started ignoring him, being quiet, because you could tell he was raising his voice. Do you know this man started getting loud and all aggressive? Goes back to that shit I said, when a man get aggressive, they trying to check you or whatever. But she wasn't beat for it. So she just kindly bowed out of the conversation, called, and she came over here and she chilled. When she got back home, this is what she came home to. Okay, look at all her shit in a look at that. All that shit in the walkway. The walkway is just tore up. He threw stuff out. These are all the, if they're items that they have around the place. He tore all that up. This is aggression, y'all. Who does this with a female? There's no relationship like that. He probably want to get his pickle wet, but can't. Who knows? But this is unacceptable. Would you have done this if you was roommating with a guy? I think not. Bet you he would. Check it out. Look at that shit. Now keep in mind, this woman just came home to see her place like this. The hallway. We ain't go in the house yet. I'll be pissed off. Now this is the one in the house. Now here she's about to go inside the house. Keep in mind, this is a roommate, okay? She left. He was trying to get angry. He was trying to talk her up into an argument, but she was smart enough to fucking leave. Look what happened. Look at that shit. Tore her place up. Look at that. Look at that. That makes no sense at all. You see that? That's the man. That's the man that don't get the thing wet.
Fucking idiot.
Imagine coming home to this nonsense, yo.
Whatever.
See?
Whatever.
And that's the nonsense. Oh shit, I didn't mean to go that far, y'all. But that's the nonsense. And that is the type of stuff that happens. And he's not even taking any responsibility. He low-key trying to clean little stuff up. He sent her the password so she can get online because he tore out her cable line. I mean, no accountability at all. He's not taking any accountability, and that's pretty much the standard for cats like that. I'm telling you, that's pretty much the standard. No accountability. And you teach it, and every man don't need to be duplicated. I swear to God, they don't. Because you'd be teaching your son the same freaking behavior. You'd be teaching your child to have the same behavior. I think that's the end of it. Yeah, that's the end of it. Now, how horrible is that? How horrible is that? That's the shit I'm talking about. Now, I have a thought process on why and how this stuff took place. Now, a lot of people might not know. I'll go beyond the Bible, right? But there was a time back. Hold on, let me share my screen, and I'm gonna watch a little video with y'all. You don't have to watch it, but I'm gonna share it with y'all. But look, just so you know, especially you Bible thumpers, I know the Bible. I check the Bible out too. But if you're basing your whole life on something, you better know a little bit more than what the heck just to be quoting some shit. Okay. So check this out. Let me put it up here like this. Put it up here like this. About like that. Yes. Okay. So of course we're talking early. It was probably more, but six early human civilizations. Okay. Now I know they always talk about Egypt and stuff, one of the newest, and I truly believe in the story of Thoth, and I do believe that we are genetically modified from giants and from what do you call them? The giants and the Inky and Lil. Those were all people from celestial, outer space, aliens, if you will. I believe in that story. In fact, the Bible talks about it. Everybody got a Bible. Whatever religion you are, it talks about people coming from outer space, not from this world. That's an alien, right? Okay. And we are genetically modified. I do believe that. So we have so when we talk about Egypt, we have Mesopotamia. These things parallel. They were all together. They just let us talk about Egypt. Mesopotamia, today's Mesopotamia is Mesopotamia, which included Babylon, which was Babylon and stuff back then, is where you would find Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria. Now, it's a lot of wars and over there. You see when they invaded Iraq, the first thing they go for is the museums and shit like that. I believe there's telomere caps over in there because this was one of the first places that the ancients landed, okay? You have ancient Egypt. All of this stuff happening around the same time, okay? You have ancient India, okay? Ancient China, okay? So ancient Peru, all this stuff around the same time. Mesoamerica, okay? All this stuff around the same time. And all this before Jesus, okay? And how is it that a lot of that stuff ended up in your Bible? Okay, so it behooves you to go to the original script, right? To find it. And a lot of this stuff is not linear. When we think of it, we think straight linear, like this stuff just happened. I'm not going to read this stuff to you, but the point of me bringing this up is that you have to study. Otherwise, you're just going to be a quoting fool. God this and God that. Like, did y'all know God had a wife? And who was your God? Did you know how they created the God? You understand what I'm saying? Like, you guys, all these guys, do you know the different gods in the Bible? I mean, anyway, so before your Bible in Mesopotamia, even before, even before all of this, ancient China, there was a world, y'all. They had a world. They had a what we called a world. Even Stone Ages had a world. But I'm saying they were matriarchal. We had a matriarchal world, and women were in divine rulership. Okay, and the reason I believe it changed. This is just my opinion, is because they had a sacred sex orgies. This is stuff you guys have to look up on your own. You feel me? They had sacred sex orgies and stuff like that where they worship the woman. If you understand, I had told they were Paleolithic sex orgies. That's the gods. You understand? When it rains, when a man semen is to rain, women fertility, they can bring forth life or whatever. Well, anyway, I believe that once it got to the Romans, it got to be they like now, men wasn't getting no poom poom, or it was at the whim of the woman if you're gonna get some poom poom, and we were matriarchal. But when you got the Bronze Age, then the money comes in. You understand what I'm saying? Now you got, hold on, let me fix this up. Now you got money that comes in. Money is coming in, and so men are tired of that, because with money is power and land, and there's something to be had. Okay, so then you got to go to patriarchal, because women were having babies then, but it didn't matter because everything was the mother. She's a child of this, that's a child of that mother, this mother. The men really didn't matter then, right? I mean, as far as fathers, because they was doing what they did. So I believe that once that money came in and once that power came in, now keep in mind, I said Mesopotamian, China, you had people all over the country, all over the world, and those great gods from those great alien gods, if you will, because this is a cargo cult. We thought of them as gods, but not we, but people thought of them as gods. So that's where you get the ancient texts. That's where you get them talking to. I'm not going to give this. This is not a class, all right? But I'm just making a point. My point is, men got tired. The woman always had power. She had set power over her body, power over everything. You feel me? She was the mother of gods, the mother of the goddess of all gods. You got to look this shit up, y'all. It's true. It's true. All right. The Lost Goddesses. There's a book. As a matter of fact, we're going to see this guy. I'm going to show you a little a video. But he don't say this, but I'm saying this. I believe that if money come along, Murdoch killed Murdoch killed his great grandmom or something like that. The gods put him up to do it, split her in half. You got the heavens and the earth, made the heavens and the earth with her body. Okay. And so now men are ruling. Okay. You got money, men are ruling, and you got to make it patriarchal because we want to pass down this money. So that's when the men, it started mattering for the father and their lineage so they could pass shit down. Okay. It was about conquering, and that's what men are. They want to conquer some shit, right? Okay, well, we've been there ever since, is what I believe. But I'm gonna show you a little something about the women anyway. Let me say this. Let me say this before I get into this. I'm gonna show you Priscilla. I fucks with Priscilla because, matter of fact, before I go to Priscilla, let me just show you this. I'm going to show you this. We're just going to have to do this video. This video is kind of long, but it gives us some good shit. And this video is, I'm going to be sharing a screen of someone else's work. I watched this channel. It's the myth. It's a guy, he at Gnostic Informant. I watched his channel. He's pretty dope. But this guy here, Edward Dodge, he wrote a book called The History of the Goddesses from the Ice Age to the Bible. Okay? That means from the Ice Age way back unto your Bible now. Okay? See, because you act like, I hate the word mother effer, because you know where that word come from? But anyway, it's real nasty. Yes, you have to know that there was something that happened with the women before the Bible. A lot of people like to refer to the Bible because it makes you men especially comfortable. The Bible despise women. You feel me? And it makes you people more comfortable, and it helps your theory. It helps your story. It justifies your egotistical behavior and towards women. Okay, that's why you always want to refer to the Bible, you brothers out there who always asking me with your Bible. You don't even know where the Bible came from. Telling me about some Bible. Let's get into this here thing, y'all. Watch this here shit right here. Hold on, I'm gonna make it big. God darn it. Yeah, we're gonna watch this because y'all gonna know today. Okay, here we go. Let me put me in here like this. Okay, I do it like that. Let's go. Let's go.
Heard of Asherah, and I never heard of a wife of God, and I thought that was all pretty bizarre and remarkable, and I was very curious to find out more. Like the lion is a symbol of goddesses, but it becomes the Lion of Judah. The Hindus rectify their version of God with the Christian God. So if everyone's believing in the same God, I believe that goes all the way back, that all the sky fathers are all the same. It's also true for the Earth Mother. Transgender people were totally celebrated, and they were high priests, shamans. Men would voluntarily castrate themselves in service of the goddess. They have these traditions in Sumer. The priests for Artemis at Ephesus were doing this. The biblical writers are staunchly patriarchal and openly hostile to these other traditions that are in their community. The mother goddess. She is the Israelite mother goddess. And she is the mother of all living.
We are Myth Vision. Welcome back to Myth Vision Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Lambert. Ladies and gentlemen, interesting show we have for you today about the lost goddess. From the Ice Age to the Bible. And your book is going to be displayed here in just a second. I hope you guys go down in the description, take the time to read it, and check out what the contents in here have. Really pretty cover. And Edward Dodge is joining us. Welcome to Myth Vision, my friend.
Hi, Derek here. Really appreciate the chance to talk
Edward Dodge put in a lot of work, y'all. I got to get that book. I don't have it yet.
to you and your audience.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity as well for you coming on and talking about your book. Anyone who's interested can go to Amazon or go to the recommended books list that's down in the description. You guys can check it out. I'm interested to hear what you're going to do here specifically, what you've written on, and some of the information you're zeroing in on might be something fascinating going throughout history on how civilizations have viewed women, or at least have a goddess, a divine woman figure. Wisdom potentially comes to mind, or someone like Asherah or whatever. You know, there's always some type of goddess picture that's been kind of removed from these patriarchal systems. So here we have lostgoddess.io. That's the website. You guys can check out Mr. Dodge's website and go show him some love. You know, check out what he's got going on there. You can contact him there as well. And then we have the Patreon. I do tons and tons of work. I mean, you can join, get early access. You can also steer the direction of some of the shows by asking questions when I go to interview experts, and your question can be recorded in 1080p, high quality. Eventually, it'll probably turn into 4K when I get better equipment than I already have. So, Mr. Dodge, tell me, what are people missing? What is it that we don't know when it comes to this goddess, if you will?
All right, well, you can call me Ed. You don't need to go with the Mr. Dodge thing.
All right, Ed.
My mom still calls me Eddie, so the Edward's just for writing. So basically, I was exploring Asherah, and I wanted to figure out who she was. Since there's sort of a backstory of how I fell into this, but I'll just start with that. I grew up going to church, and I heard about. As an adult, I heard about scholars saying that the early Hebrews were pagan before they were monotheists, and that God had a wife, and her name was Asherah. And I was, pretty shocked, to be honest with you, to hear this, because I'd grown up going to church, and I'm no biblical scholar by any stretch, but I felt pretty familiar with the traditions, and I'd never heard of Asherah, and I'd never heard of a wife of God. and I thought that was all pretty bizarre and remarkable. And I was very curious to find out more. And I was curious not only who she was, but what it meant to worship her. And at a cultural level, what were you believing in? If you were following the wife of God, what did that mean that you believed in? Like, what were your traditions? What were your rituals? What were your beliefs? What was your worldview? Who were these people and what were they doing? And so I was really curious. And this plays back to a question I had as a child in church. I remember as a kid being like, wondering what these Canaanites were doing. Like, what were they doing that was so awful and depraved that the prophets were so upset? I was like, I remember as a kid being like, these are just people. Like, what were they really doing? Like, what was going on in those Canaanite cities? And so that's really what I ended up digging into. And so what I found out was, I think, truly remarkable. And I feel that I've laid out the story of the transition from Israelite paganism to monotheism, because that was really the other question, was like, how does this, the scholars keep telling us this, that the Israelites were pagan before they were monotheists, but how does that jibe with the Bible story that we're taught in the traditional narrative? And I was trying to just figure it out for my own self. And what I finally figured out was that basically that El and Yahweh were two separate gods. And that El is very, very ancient, and he is the ancient sky father. And I believe that all the sky fathers, all across traditions, if you believe the Jews, Christians, and Muslims are all believing the same God, same sky father, same heavenly father, the Native Americans say that their sky father was the same as the Christian father. The Native Americans never had a problem believing in rectifying their version of God with the Christian God. The Hindus rectify their version of God with the Christian God. So if everyone's believing in the same God, I believe that goes all the way back, that all the sky fathers are all the same. And I think that it's also true for the Earth Mother, and that the Earth Mother, we know well today as Mother Earth and Mother Nature, that these traditions also go all the way back. And Asherah is a representative of those traditions. She is part of these Earth Mother traditions. And
so why we never hear about the mother traditions? All right. I remember I used to ask, well, did Jesus got kids or what? Did father kids? How do it go back? My parents weren't able to tell me. They were like, oh, until Jesus is, I don't even recall, three-headed man or some nonsense. And couldn't nobody else answer that. Because these things are passed down and they're given to you. All right, let me stop. Let me go ahead and let y'all watch it. Go ahead.
So she's not just a Canaanite goddess. The scholars always say she's some Canaanite goddess. She's not some Canaanite goddess. She is the mother goddess. She is the Israelite mother goddess. And she is the mother of all living. And she represents and she has equivalences in other traditions. So for the Greeks, she's the equivalent to Rhea, who's the mother of the Olympian Greeks. She is the mother of the Olympian gods, the mother of Zeus, one of the Titans, the wife of Kronos. The Greeks equated Kronos to El. So basically, the Israelites were pagan before they were monotheist. They're worshiping El all along until Moses introduces Yahweh in the Bronze Age collapse. And Yahweh was a young god. He was a new god, and he's a reformer. It's not monotheism, but they're very much cultural reformers. They want to end, followers of Yahweh want to end idolatry, which is the practice of having
cultural reformers,
having the gods like in a stone or in a statue. The golden calf, I believe, is just the idol that represented El and represented the old tradition. They want to end the child sacrifice that the Canaanites and the Phoenicians were, in my opinion, totally doing. And they want to end the public sex rituals that are associated with these goddess traditions. So the goddess traditions are, I know you're familiar with the dying and rising god and that motif. That motif repeats over and over again in all these cultures. And they're all, what I finally figured out is they're all goddess traditions. At the heart of that story is that there is typically a male figure, but not always, typically a male figure that dies, and then he is raised by a goddess. And every one of those stories has the goddess at the heart of it. The goddess is the one who raises the one from the dead.
You heard that? Why? And this is research. We're going off his research. All right. These people have traveled and stuff like that. And also Billy Carson says the same stuff. Why don't we talk about that in our churches?
Because the goddesses are at heart cycle of life traditions and nature traditions and fertility traditions of the growth of plants. And they're all rooted in agriculture and plant growth traditions. And they associate sex with creation. They associate that sex makes the flowers grow, and that semen is rain, and that these traditions are extremely sexual. And so they have ritual prostitution. They celebrate women's sexuality. They don't have paternal bloodlines. They have maternal bloodlines. So when you have matriarchal maternal bloodlines, it doesn't really matter who the women are having sex with. They don't have to be monogamous. And these cultures were not monogamous. And this is the stuff the Hebrew prophets are going on and on and on about, that they can't stand it.
They can't stand it. Oh shit! Sorry.
Monotheists, and that God had a wife.
Sorry, y'all.
That they accumulated in Jeremiah after the.
Hold on, I fucked up.
After the goddess. She's not some Canaanite goddess. She is the mother goddess. She is the Israelite mother goddess. And she is the mother of all living, and she represents and she has equivalences in other traditions. So for the Greeks, she's the equivalent to Rhea, who's the mother of the Olympian Greeks. She is the mother of the Olympian gods, the mother of Zeus, one of the Titans, the wife of Kronos. The Greeks equated Kronos to El. So basically, the Israelites were pagan before they were monotheist. They're worshiping El all along until Moses introduces Yahweh in the Bronze Age collapse. And Yahweh was a young god. He was a new god, and he's a reformer. It's not monotheism, but they're very much cultural reformers. They want to end, the followers of Yahweh want to end idolatry, which is the practice of having the gods like in a stone or in a statue. The golden calf, I believe, is just the idol that represented El and represented the old traditions. They want to end the child sacrifice that the Canaanites and the Phoenicians were, in my opinion, totally doing. And they want to end the public sex rituals that are associated with these goddess traditions. So the goddess traditions are, I know you're familiar with the dying and rising god in that motif. That motif repeats over and over again in all these cultures, and they're all, what I finally figured out is they're all goddess traditions. That the heart of that story is that there is typically a male figure, but not always, typically a male figure that dies, and then he is raised by a goddess. And every one of those stories has the goddess at the heart of it. The goddess is the one who raises the one from the dead, because the goddesses are at heart cycle of life traditions and nature traditions and fertility traditions of the growth of plants. And they're all rooted in agriculture and plant growth traditions. And they associate sex with creation. They associate that sex makes the flowers grow, and that semen is rain, and that these traditions are extremely sexual. And so they have ritual prostitution. They celebrate women's sexuality. They don't have paternal bloodlines. They have maternal bloodlines. So when you have matriarchal maternal bloodlines, it doesn't really matter who the women are having sex with. They don't have to be monogamous. And these cultures were not monogamous. And this is the stuff the Hebrew prophets are going on and on and on about, that they can't stand it. They can't stand that the women are running around not being monogamous and having ritual prostitution. And so that's what they're doing. And then Yahweh, they want to get rid of those traditions. They want to kick them out.
Right.
And so they're fighting about it the entire First Temple period. The First Temple is a pagan temple. The temple that King Solomon builds, for Yahweh, is a pagan temple where Yahweh and El are two separate gods.
Remember, he was talking about Solomon. He kept sending me this and that about Solomon.
And Yahweh is leading this cultural reform movement. The Yahweh prophets, and they fight about it the entire First Temple period. It does not get resolved. And at the end, when the temple is destroyed, they're still been worshiping the Queen of Heaven all along. And they talk about it, because the women, Jeremiah, after the destruction of the temple, Jeremiah castigates the women they're now in exile in Egypt for having been worshiping the Queen of Heaven. This is Jeremiah 44. And the women shoot back, no, like everything was fine when we were worshiping the Queen of Heaven. It's your fault. It's Yahweh's fault that we got destroyed. And the women are like, piss off, Jeremiah. And Jeremiah gets mad and stomps off. And the women never admit that there was anything wrong with what they were doing.
Because it wasn't. They was upset.
And it's only, so then they go into the Babylonian exile, and it's there that they write the Torah. It's there that they write the Bible, that they accumulate all the texts, and they do the final job of writing it all up. This is Ezra and his team of scribes, presumably. And they bring it back to Jerusalem, and now they're the Jews. And now it's Second Temple Judaism. Now it's monotheism. All the paganism has been thrown out. There's no more sex and drugs rituals, because the plant drugs are also a part of it too. I write a lot about cannabis. And so cannabis is also very central to all this. They're totally burning it in King Solomon's temple, offering it to Yahweh, but they throw it all out. It all is, these are some symbols and traditions get syncretized and taken over by the Yahwist, the ones that are acceptable, like the lion. The lion is a symbol of goddesses, but it becomes the Lion of Judah. But other symbols and other
Did you hear
traditions,
that?
particularly around sexuality.
Did you hear that? The lion was a symbol of goddesses, but it became the Lion of Judah. Ain't that some shit? See, they flipped a lot of shit, y'all.
Are condemned, and the monotheists have been condemning witches, whores, and homosexuals ever since. So you have so in these pagan traditions, you have things like I was saying, plenty of plant drugs. They have the whole apothecary of opium, cannabis, psychedelics. They've got transgender people. Transgender people were totally celebrated, and they were high priests, shamans. Men would voluntarily castrate themselves in the service of the goddess. They have these traditions in Sumer, well documented.
This kind of sounds like Hollywood, doesn't it? Sounds like Hollywood.
All through history, and they're the priests of Cybele in Rome were doing this. The priests for Artemis at Ephesus were doing this. They've got these great names like the Galli priests for Cybele and the Megabyzi for Artemis. It's the Kadesh are in the Bible. So the Kadesh and the Kadesha in the Bible are the priests and priestesses that that they call temple prostitutes. They're actually the holy men. They're actually the word Kadesha means holy. They're the holy ones. They're the holy women. So it goes on and on. There's multiple examples of the transgender people, multiple examples of the ritual prostitution, and you can find any of the cultures where they celebrate, because they have temple sex in Greece, but they don't have the Kadesha, and it's not the same thing where they have these sanctified holy women, and they celebrate where the men celebrate bringing their daughters to the temple to lose their virginity. Like that was a tradition in Babylon. That's not a tradition in Greece. And so it's these traditions where they celebrating the women's sexuality are the ones that have these older matriarchal goddesses, and these are the ones that the Hebrew prophets are quite keen to eliminate. And so it's Asherah, some other goddess, but then Ishtar she's the queen of heaven, and she's really the most popular one. In the Bible, she's Astarte, and that's the one that King Solomon is worshiping. So there's two goddesses that are being named repeatedly. It's Astarte and Asherah.
So that guy was beating me down with Solomon. He kept beating me down with Solomon. You saw that, right, earlier in the show. But see, Solomon is worshiping the queen, this goddess here. See, you have to study deep past what your granny told you. That's the only way this works, y'all. You got to arm yourself.
Asherah. Most people say Asherah was the queen of heaven. I actually don't agree. I think it's not the same thing where they have these sanctified holy women, and they celebrate where the men celebrate bringing their daughters to the temple to lose their virginity. Like that was a tradition in Babylon. It's not a tradition in Greece. And so it's these traditions where they celebrating the women's sexuality are the ones that have these older matriarchal goddesses, and these are the ones that the Hebrew prophets are quite keen to eliminate. And so it's Asherah, some other goddess, but then Ishtar she's the queen of heaven, and she's really the most popular one. In the Bible, she's Astarte, and that's the one that King Solomon is worshiping. So there's two goddesses that are being named repeatedly. It's Astarte and Asherah. Most people say Asherah was the queen of heaven. I actually don't agree. I think it's Astarte is the queen of heaven. But Asherah is the mother, and Asherah is highly respected. And so, and then there's a third goddess who's also even more powerful, which is Anat, but she's not mentioned in the Bible. I call her she who must not be named because she is so powerful and terrifying that the Hebrew prophets don't mention her even to insult her, because every time they mention Asherah or Astarte, they're basically condemning them and insulting them. But Anat, who is this goddess of death, she's like Kali. She's a goddess of death and slaughter and destruction. She's dripping in blood. She's wearing a skull necklace and a belt of human hands, and she delights in slaughter. And she's Baal's consort. And we know that Baal is mentioned in the Bible many times, but they don't mention his number one consort, which is Anat, who is so powerful that she destroys death, that she challenges El. She threatens to kill El, and El is like, yeah, whatever, doesn't dispute it. So Anat is she who must not be named.
I'd like to ask, how does this play with Lilith? Because I wonder if Lilith is demonized in later Jewish texts.
So really exactly. So Lilith is not mentioned in the Bible, right? She's a Jewish folk tradition. I think that I'm only speculating here, but I mean, I think that she's the folk version of the memories of these earlier goddesses that were demonized, especially Anat, who was actually quite terrifying.
So they are demonized, the goddesses. Now they're trying to change. Remember, I showed you earlier the earlier people who were here long before, and they existed simultaneously across the globe, y'all. So now they're starting to get rid of this worshiping of these women.
But the idea that Adam had a previous marital relation before Eve that was something dark and forbidding, I think is a folk memory of these earlier traditions, for sure.
Interesting. So there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot, because it's a history all the way through the world, and I found a logical thread, and I just kept pulling on it and just kept taking me to the next place. And I can trace it literally from the Venus figurines of the Ice Age to today's culture wars today, in one unbroken thread. So there is a lot going on.
So technically, when you say the Ice Age, you're talking the melting of the Ice Age, when the Ice Age melts, or are you talking about pre-melting of the Ice Age?
Oh, we got commercials, y'all. Y'all know this is not my video. Shout out.
The process of actually putting this all together.
Many hours of finding the right camera angles.
That Gnostic dude.
I'm talking about that. Yeah, I mean, so the humans leave, Homo sapiens leave Africa around 60,000 BC. Some point we go through the cognitive leap where presumably we start using speech, and then you start seeing art. The first art is, there's basically three kinds of art we see in Ice Age culture. There's ritual burials, there's cave paintings, and there's Venus figurines. And we see those three things repeated across all of Eurasia for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. And then you get into the when the Ice Age melts, is the you go through the Younger Dryas period, which I believe is a total cataclysm.
Right.
You know,
what do you think? What kind of cataclysm do you take? Because I know Randall Carlson and other people have different takes on this. And
I think it's a mass extinction event, and that we know that all the big animal species, the megafauna, are all wiped out. The woolly mammoths, the saber-toothed tigers, the giant sloths, all these animals that humans have been living beside and hunting for tens of thousands of years all disappear. We know that human populations get totally decimated by like maybe 90%. And that it's I mean, a lot of people think there was a comet strike and that it hit the ice caps and unleashes violent cataclysms. The most extreme kind of the end of the world, Mad Max apocalyptic scenarios. That's my speculation. The science on the comet strike is all pretty new stuff, but I think it lines up. But we know that the populations were demoed for sure.
And some people think a solar flare, like the sun had a little burst of heat. And
that's another theory that covers a lot of the same data points.
And either way, at the end of the day, I think the point is the ice freaking melted. The water rose 400 feet. Ocean sea levels rose, causing intense flooding and ice glaciers, if you will, grinding Earth to the point where it was such a large magnitude. I mean, the crust of the Earth literally was sunk, causing the Earth's shape to not be quite sphere, if you will. I mean, that's the kind of weight these ice caps had. And they're sliding, they're grinding, and they're causing all sorts of chaos. So I think this is interesting. I don't want to get stopped there. I want to get into the goddess stuff. But I think as you go on, you talk about these temple prostitutes. It's something I've never done a deep dive on, right? I've never really
exactly. Nobody does.
Yeah,
nobody does. They call them prostitutes, and then you're just trained to dismiss them. As soon as you hear the word prostitute, your mind says these women are worthless. Don't even think about anything about them. Just dismiss them immediately. But I actually realized that they're central to the whole story, and that when I realized that the word Kadesh, so the word in the Bible is Kadesha, and they're mentioned repeatedly, and then the Kadesh are their male counterparts. The word Kadesha means holy. Like that is the definition of the word.
A holy prostitute.
It just means holy. And they are called the holy ones. And then they're documented in Mesopotamian. They're all the way through Sumer, all the way back to Sumer. They're there. And this prostitution, it's run by women. I want to make this abundantly clear. This is women's business. The women ran it. The women kept the money. They're not being pimped out by some man. The women kept the money. They had enormous influence and authority in the culture, because the sacred marriage ceremony, which is the Hyros Gamos, is like one of the most important traditions from Mesopotamia, is where the goddess has to sanctify the king's right to rule. And it's presumably a sex ritual where the king goes back behind closed doors with one of these priestesses and has to satisfy her, and I don't think it's any like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am either. I think he's like got to like really prove his virility, because if he can't do it, then he's not fit to be king, and like off with his head.
So
and
why aren't we bringing this fun back? I mean,
I know, right? They have another tradition too, which is the ritual humiliation. So the New Year's festival is a multi-day, it's like a 12-day long festival in Mesopotamia, and the Hyros Gamos is one event, and the ritual humiliation is another one where they strip the king, they take away his crown and his scepter and all of his royal robes and everything down, and the high priest has to smack the king across the face hard enough to make him cry, and the king has to confess all of his sins and iniquities before the high priest, and then be absolved of all of his sins, so that that's just part of, again, annually reconfirming his right to rule.
So original BDSM for anybody who's interested. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? Seriously. But that's not by the priestess. That's by the male priest. But anyway, it's all part of the same tradition. And you imagine our modern day, these octogenarian politicians, they wouldn't be able to pass those tests.
No, they wouldn't. And I do think this is interesting what you're pointing out, and it's kind of touched into some stuff I've actually listened to before online, where they talk about the stoned ape theory from some people, right? That the idea that
absolutely.
Yeah, and in that line of thought, they weren't patriarchal systems where it's ran by men. It was an equal, open society, kind of like ancient hippies, if you will, who really just knew how to get along, and there wasn't constant war. There wasn't all the things we see that we now have. And look at what happens when we men are in charge.
At least he admitting it, and that's what we should have now: an egalitarian type of society. I swear, we are. Let's continue watching. I'm sorry.
When we want to control everything, man, we're knuckleheads.
Absolutely, this is absolutely my whole theory. Is that all the way through the Neolithic? So the Neolithic comes along around 10,000 years ago, and it's the survivors of the Younger Dryas, the traumatized survivors that start planting. And then for the next 5,000 years, you've got Neolithic settlements that, by all accounts, are egalitarian. There's no war. There's no dominance hierarchies. There's no kings or observable governance that we can observe. And men and women are treated equally. And there's no glorious kings or heroes or any identifiable heroes. All that stuff starts with the Bronze Age, when the settlements have gotten a couple things happening. The settlements have gotten big enough and prosperous enough that there's something worth stealing. And then the introduction.
Money, power, Bronze Age, flipped everything.
Bronze gives men weapons. Mm-hmm. And that's when you start to see war. And that's around 4000 BC, 3500 BC. And then the combination of horses and chariots and bronze weapons is when the Indo-European men start to take over. Yeah, that's Artemis right there.
I just want them to see the cool art in the book.
He was going in. Why you interrupt him? Damn. Oh, shit. Hold on. He was going in. He just going to interrupt the flow. Let's see that again.
Absolutely. This is absolutely my whole theory, is that all the way through the Neolithic. So the Neolithic comes along around 10,000 years ago, and it's the survivors of the Younger Dryas, the traumatized survivors that start planting. And then for the next 5,000 years, you've got Neolithic settlements that, by all accounts, are egalitarian. There's no war. There's no dominance hierarchies. There's no kings or observable governance that we can observe. And men and women are treated equally. And there's no glorious kings or heroes or any identifiable heroes. All that stuff starts with the Bronze Age, when the settlements have gotten a couple things happening. The settlements have gotten big enough and prosperous enough that there's something worth stealing. And then the introduction of bronze gives men weapons. Mm-hmm. And that's when you start to see war. And that's around 4000 BC, 3500 BC. And then the combination of horses and chariots and bronze weapons is when the Indo-European men start to take over. Yeah, that's Artemis right there.
I just want them to see the cool art in the book.
There's a lot of good art in the book.
Yeah.
The mistress of animals there. And so I think the men start to assert themselves with the beginning of the Bronze Age, and that's when we get war. That's when we get kings taking over, and the men start to assert themselves. And you see the steady devolution of women's rights and women's authority in the culture over the next 2,000 years. And you can trace it through the mythology until ultimately the women are totally knocked off the pedestal altogether around, say, 500 BC when the Old Testament is completed.
See, and that's my whole point of showing this. And that's my whole point, y'all, because we are conditioned. Some of these women don't even know that they had power. Like, they just think they are secondary. They think they really think that they came from some dude's rib. And I'm just saying that story is made up, y'all. And it's for a reason that it's made up. But believe what you like. I'm just more so showing that women are equal to men. We are power. We was just not even say equal, but we're powerful as well. Okay. And there was a time where that was acknowledged. Okay. We didn't start with the Bible. All right. I'm sorry. I digress. Let's go.
But the Greeks are doing it too. So you steadily see the women lose their rights until the patriarchy finally totally takes over, and the warrior kings assert themselves completely, and women are put into a permanently subordinate role. But they didn't used to be. And the key thing about these Bronze Age goddesses that they're trying to get rid of is that they're not subordinate to any men. Asherah, Astarte, Ishtar especially, and Anat, these are not subordinate goddesses. They're part of the matriarchy. They don't submit to any men. Ishtar never submits to any male figures ever. She challenges all the other gods.
That's that blood I got in me, that Ishtar blood. She
challenges her father for authority. She challenges all the other gods for authority. And she doesn't submit to any men. So you can't have a patriarchy where you've got these goddesses running around giving bad ideas to your daughters, that because Ishtar is the holy prostitute. She is the holy harlot. She is the whore of Babylon. And that's not an insult. It's a title. It's a title she wore proudly because they were celebrating prostitution. So the high goddess, she's the most popular goddess in the entire ancient Near East, because you've got the king of the gods, who's obviously going to represent all the political powers and the kings and everything. But culturally, where all the festivals are and the popular events and all the love of the people, it's with the goddesses. Just like the Virgin Mary is the most popular part of the Catholic traditions, the goddesses were too in the ancient world, because Ishtar brings all the pleasure. She brings the blooming flowers and the beauty, anything that's beautiful, anything that's pleasurable, the pleasure of sex, the victory in war. She's a goddess of love and war. So she brings you victory in war, and she brings you love at night, and she brings you divination and prophecy, and she is by far the star of the show. And it's the same goddess across many cultures, it's just they give her different names. So it's Inanna, and then she changed her name to Ishtar, and then she becomes Astarte. The Assyrians call her Melita. The Scythians have another name for her. She's Aphrodite Urania for the Greeks. Now, the Greeks, we'll have to talk about the Greeks, because the Greeks are parallel to the Hebrews, which is something I never realized before doing this work. And the Greeks are going through a parallel cultural shift where they're also demoting the goddesses. But whereas the Hebrews get rid of the goddesses altogether, the Greeks just reorder the pantheon and make all the goddesses sort of change all their powers around, so that none of them are so they're all submissive to Zeus, basically, so that they're all subordinate to the male gods. And so they reorder the entire pantheon, and they recognize two different Aphrodites. There's Aphrodite Urania, because Aphrodite is like one of the oldest gods in the Greek pantheon. They recognize her as being imported, and they recognize her as being older. Aphrodite Urania is the queen of heaven, and she's older. She's the Ishtar version. And then Aphrodite Pandemos is the Aphrodite from the Olympian pantheon, and that means common Aphrodite. And she doesn't have the war powers. She doesn't have the divination powers. She is not, and she's not the high goddess. She's not the queen of heaven. All that stuff has been taken away. They basically split her in half, give all the war powers to Athena, all the powers of war and divination and all that, the arts of civilization, weaving, that all goes to Athena, while the sex stuff is just isolated in Aphrodite, and she's basically turned into like a bimbo with no real powers. She doesn't have any war powers. And meanwhile, Hera is given the title Queen of Heaven, but she is totally subordinate to Zeus as his wife.
Right.
When Ishtar was queen of heaven, she's not married to the king of the gods. The queen of heaven and the king of the gods were two separate characters with separate spouses and separate roles in the theology. So Ishtar was a very independent goddess. She's not married to the king of the gods, and she's like notoriously promiscuous. Her one husband she ever has is Dumuzi. She sends him to the underworld for his lack of righteousness. And then, she's not monogamous to him anyway.
Let me ask you this. How has your research, let me put it this way. Have you bumped into any difficulties when you get into certain studies? Like, for example, I have a good friend, Dr. Joshua Bowen. He's an Assyriologist.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to those guys. I would love to talk to Dr. Josh and Megan, his wife.
Yeah, because I know they know the Sumerian, they know the Akkadian and the Babylonian. They know that stuff really, really well. And they're reading this stuff in its actual languages. And they know the goddesses and all of this stuff. They probably would see a lot of what you say and say, yes. I wonder, have you had any kickback or any resistance from anyone that is a scholar going, look, I wouldn't make those connections, but I think you're right about this part?
I haven't really had a chance. I really worked on this book in kind of a bubble. I was really pretty isolated. I stumbled into the story. I wasn't actually setting out to write about goddesses. I never even knew about any of this stuff. You want to hear the backstory on my book?
Yeah.
I studied the history of cannabis, and I'd been writing about the history of cannabis since I was in college. And I've got a whole story about that. But basically, when I was a college student, I had, I don't know if you're familiar with Jack Harris. I don't know if you know the whole cannabis hemp.
Jack Harris, he looked like a smoker. Jack Harris is legendary, for real. But look, he looked like a stoner.
All this stuff. But Jack Harris wrote this book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, that set off the whole story about how marijuana is also hemp and has this real history. And I read that book when I was a teenager, and it totally changed my life. It was like a life-changing event when I realized that marijuana was also hemp, which is how you build ships, and that we needed it. Our founding fathers grew the hell out of it, couldn't get enough of it, and that the government is totally lying to us about arresting us for this wild plant that our founding fathers couldn't possibly have enough of. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, they're all growing it. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I grew up in and around the government. So the idea that, the government was actively lying to us, to me personally, I kind of took it personally, was I didn't appreciate it, to say the least. And so I started studying that history. And what I found really fascinating about it was that for both the fiber and the drugs goes back to the Neolithic Revolution. And there's an unbroken thread of history of both of them being used all the way through human history. And so when I was in college, I started trying to write this book. I took a year off. Well, actually, I got kicked out of school, but I still had access to the library. So I was trying to take Jack's book and turn it into a narrative. And so Jack's book is like a collage of Xerox printings and things all sort of stitched together. And so I was taking all of his materials and then finding the original stuff in the libraries at college. And then as I was doing the project, I realized holy cow, this is a history of the world. This is a history of the world, and not just from one culture, but from multiple cultures. The whole history of China, the whole history of Europe, the whole history of the Middle East, the whole history of America. And at age 20, I was really not capable of writing the history of the world. So I spent a year working on it, and then went back to school and graduated and went on with my life. And I didn't finish the book, but it became an interest of mine. And I kind of put all that stuff away for a long time, had a family and everything, and then went back, and I got to writing about, I work in tech, so I work in renewable energy and stuff. So I was writing about renewable energy and policy and stuff for a couple of years. And then I went to work in the marijuana business a couple of years ago and busted out all my old research and started getting back into it and writing history again. And I was looking to write a book because I wanted to have this bucket list project of write a history of cannabis, but I was looking for a new angle because there's already a bunch of books out there. So I wanted to write something new. So I was looking at the references in the Bible. So this is another conversation I'd love to have with some of the scholars, is that according to modern scholars, there's 5 references to cannabis in the Hebrew, where it's mentioned 5 times in the original text, but it is mistranslated as a different plant. It's either mistranslated as either aromatic cane or as calamus, which is a different plant. Now, some people will defend the calamus translation and say that is in fact the correct plant, and we can have that debate. But the modern scholars say it's cannabis in these 5 references. And so the most important one is Exodus 30:23, where it's one of the ingredients, excuse me, Exodus 30:23, cannabis is one of the ingredients in Moses' holy anointing oil. And if you know, the holy anointing oil is pretty important. It blesses the Ark of the Covenant and all the sacred items in the temple and in the tabernacle and the kings and the prophets, right down to Jesus Christ, who is the anointed one. And so to have cannabis as an ingredient in the holy anointing oil is like it's kind of important. And my question was, all right, so if it's sacred at the time of Moses and it's not sacred now, at some point it got thrown out. At some point the Jews changed their traditions and they got rid of it. So I was like, all right, well, at some point in history we can identify when that reform happened. And so I was just looking at it as a history project, trying to figure out, this is just for myself. I wasn't even writing anything. I just wanted to like, all right, where in history does this happen? And it was there that I stumbled into the story about Asherah. And then I started learning about the Hebrews being or the Israelites being pagans and having a wife of God. And I was like, what is this? This is crazy. And I was like, I wonder if this pagan goddesses and cannabis go together and if they get thrown out together. Because obviously if there was a wife of God at one point, she gets thrown out at some point. In some identifiable time in history, she gets
As William Beaver says, God divorced her, but he got to keep the Israelites, which he's like, which wasn't really that good. You know, like he's just like kind of making a joke and trying to raise.
No, the divorce is exactly the right. It's the same term I use. It's exactly the right. You could also say she was deposed. She was the queen mother of the universe, and she was deposed. So anyway, I was trying to I bet these things go together. And so that was my hypothesis as I dug into the research. And it turned out to be totally true that cannabis is in fact totally sacred to these goddesses. And that since I already had been studying the history of cannabis all over the world, and I had I already had trained my mind to follow this thread of history. And when I realized that there was this connection between cannabis and the goddesses, I just followed all the same cannabis.
The truth is,
we got another commercial, y'all. You already know. Just give me a second. That's crazy. Cannabis and the goddesses.
And so it goes back to the Hindus, where we document sacred use of cannabis from the Rig Veda all the way through to today. And they have the most well-defined goddess traditions. In the Shakti traditions are where we can really see the goddesses all the way through history. And we can make these parallels. And then I just started pulling on the thread. And as I uncovered, I wanted to understand what the goddess traditions were. I realized that these are the dying and rising God traditions, and that these are the mystery religions, and that they're all one big
agricultural,
all one long cultural thread. And so then when you get to the Israelites, they are all patriarchal shepherds. They make this very clear. The Abraham is a shepherd, and all the Israelites, they're shepherds. That's who they are. Well, their rivals, and they never spell this out, but once you read between the lines, their rivals are the farmers. And the farmers are the people living in the cities because they have the settlements, and the settlements form the cities. And so the farmers are the people in the cities, and the shepherds are the people outside the cities. And the farmers are the one worshiping the goddesses with these sex and drug rituals, and the shepherds are the ones, patriarchs, outside the cities, and they hate the people in the cities. And they come into Canaan, and they just...
It's kind of like that now, right?
All the way through. You see it with Sodom and Gomorrah. You see it with Jericho. The patriarchal shepherds following the shepherd god, the god of the fathers, who's the god of the patriarchs. They have a cultural rivalry with the people in the cities who are following the goddesses who don't have patriarchal bloodlines. And they're letting the women run around and be crazy and do whatever they want. And the shepherd guys are like, don't want to let their daughters meet those women at all. And so there's this real cultural rivalry that goes on for a very, very long time.
Historically speaking, I like to kind of try to speculate on when this revolution, this how do I put this? This
Reformation.
Yeah, we could use that term. I almost want to say the what we had in the 30s with alcohol.
Prohibition.
Prohibition. Yeah, this prohibition against the deity as well as the substances and whatnot. But it's more than that. It's the worship. It's all sorts of stuff. When I read in Ezekiel, I read about this interesting narrative, and it's really dark. Actually, Ezekiel kind of hints at this, like people were passing their children through the fire. And it was God giving them this stuff, like their God, right, is saying, well, look, I gave them those things because they disobeyed me. And it's like, whoa. We that's not pretty. But then you get into Second Kings. And in Second Kings, I think it's 30 or 32, you have this story about Josiah. And Josiah literally goes to this place called Bethel. He goes from places, and there are these temple priests, or if we could call them prostitutes, holy people at these locations.
The prostitutes, as Dr. Bob says.
Yeah, the prostitutes. And this reminds me of a good guy who likes to comment all the time, Dudist Priest. Every time I say this, it's like it makes me think of him. He's really cool. That's his name on YouTube. Anyway, when they go, it's weird. It's not just that they go and they slaughter you bad guys, like kill every man, woman, child type stuff like we see in 1 Samuel 15, where Saul's to go kill the Amalekites and all that. These people are supposedly Israelites, and get this, they are sacrificed on the altars in those locations. Like this horrible, I mean, and they're painted as the righteous. Josiah is the righteous, like they're all the good guys according to the author. But like they're literally burning these humans because they worship to other gods and they did other things on altars. And these altars in different locations as a sacrifice. And I'm thinking to myself, is this when some type, because it may not just be one. I mean, there might have been a constant struggle. Who knows when this started, but it makes me wonder if this might have been like one of the big elbows in what led to it. Because if I'm not mistaken, it's Josiah who discovers the ancient text that was supposedly always there from Moses. But most scholars will go, nah, it sounds to me this is when they wrote this stuff, when they decided we're going to have an official, this is what we're using as a text and whatnot. I don't know. This is speculation on my part, but it makes me think the text itself, maybe they're using older sources, but they're redacting and changing and trying to fix problems. And then some of it is being actually written then, created on the spot as kind of like, all right, here's our code. We're not with the other stuff. And the other stuff is many gods, practices we're not okay with, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, my whole method is just put everything on the historical timeline, and then and when as far as stories, you got to note when the story was written, but also the time period that the story is supposed to take place. So you sort of put both those things on the timeline. And so I think the critical inflection point, well, there's a couple of them. The first one is the Bronze Age collapse. This is like this is the inflection point where that begins this age of new gods, of the Iron Age gods. And so you've got these old gods, these old matriarchal goddesses that have been worshipped all through the Bronze Age for a few thousand years. And then you're familiar with the Bronze Age collapse, right? Yeah. So like from 1200 to 1000 BC, more or less, is a total dark age where all the empires in the Near East totally collapse, and there's a lawless time, it's anarchy.
Egypt collapses. This is where we get our Exodus narrative out of, and stuff.
Right. And this is the historical backdrop, and this is the time period when Yahweh is not a Bronze Age god. He doesn't exist in the Bronze Age. There's no record of Yahweh anywhere. The Israelites are following El. El is very well known. El is very well documented all over. And so my take on the Israelites is that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, they're not monotheists. They follow El, Israel, Beth-El.
I do want to check on the Yahweh source because I want to make sure that you're right about that.
Go ahead. As far as I know, there is no references to Yahweh. There may be some obscure references that are maybe Yahweh, but he's not a major god in the Bronze Age.
Right.
He really does not exist.
Part of the pantheon, right?
Yeah. So he gets introduced presumably during the Bronze Age collapse. Now, the oldest bit in the Bible. So the first reference to Israelites in archaeology is the Minerva stele, which is like 1208 or 1206 BC, where the Egyptians mention defeating Israel in Canaan. And at this time, Egypt has been ruling Canaan with an iron fist for 300 years. But we're getting into the fighting of the Bronze Age collapse now. There's major battles. I think it's 1215. And then another really big one, 1177, is when the Sea Peoples attack Egypt in a really dramatic fight that the Egyptians managed to hold off, but it totally weakens their power and weakens their empire. And then the oldest reference in the Bible, the people that most people think is the oldest line in the Bible is the Song of Deborah, which is in Judges 5, I think. And that's from the oral tradition, and it's a song. And if that's the oldest thing in the Bible, then that's presumably the oldest reference to Yahweh we have anywhere. because they're talking about Yahweh. And there's a couple things that are happening in that story. Is one is it's a battle against a Canaanite king, and it does sound like the fighting at the end of the Bronze Age collapsed when the Israelites are first able to move in, and that they rallied around Yahweh and found Yahweh as being just some tribal god, just another tribal god. But the followers of Yahweh, they have the victory. So like they rally around Yahweh for the victory. But the Song of Deborah is dated to around this time period, 1100, 1150 BC. And we know that the Egyptians left Canaan in 1140. That's when Ramses VI withdraws from Canaan. It's 1140 BC. And that opens the door for the Israelites to move in and start establishing settlements, which the archaeology shows that they start having new settlements. They're all hilltop settlements. They're not settlements in the farming zones. They're settlements on the hilltops that are defensible. And the Song of Deborah refers to this. It refers to, I'm not looking at it right now, but it's like when the roads were dangerous and the people had to take back roads, and the Israelites are getting fat off plunder. And she also says, when the people chose new gods. That's the key line, when the people chose new gods, because Yahweh is a new god at this time period. And I believe that Zeus is a new god at this time period too. Zeus was also introduced during the Bronze Age collapse. Zeus does not exist in the Iron Age, or Zeus does not exist in the Bronze Age, but he's an Iron Age god. And so the Greeks and the Hebrews are both going through a cultural transition where they're getting a new culture coming in, a new pantheon, new beliefs in gods. The Greeks reorder the goddesses to make them, as I already said, reorder the goddesses to suit Zeus's patriarchy. So none of the goddesses challenge his authority. Meanwhile, over in Canaan, they're still worshiping the old gods. The Canaanites, who are the Phoenicians, the Canaanites and the Phoenicians have the same religion. They're the same people. They held on to these old Bronze Age gods. And so they've got, Baal is an old Bronze Age god, and he was Lord. He was king of the gods. He's the son of El and Asherah, and he's the king of the gods. When Yahweh comes along, he's challenging Baal. Yahweh wants to knock off Baal, and Yahweh wants to be king of the hill. Yahweh wants to take the title of Baal. And that's what's happening during the First Temple period, is that Yahweh and Baal are fighting back and forth in the pagan world to be who's going to be the new king of the gods. And in terms of a cultural reform, I can see it happening if Baal is associated with the child sacrifice and a lot of these really nasty traditions. And Baal is kind of a bloody, nasty god. Have you read the Ugaritic text?
I have
with
not.
The Baal cycle? That's key, because that's like the prequel to the Bible. It's all the same characters. El, Baal, Asherah, Astarte, Anat, they're all in there. And you see them in action. This is the divine council in action. And you see that Baal is the king of the gods, and he's nasty. He spends a lot of time killing people, and they've got child sacrifice, and his consort is Anat, who's even nastier. She is like I said, she's like Kali, and she is unstoppable. She goes. So the Ugaritic text is, if we want to stop here for a second, is really fantastic, because it's a story of how it's on one hand a dying and rising God story where Baal dies and is restored by Anat, but it's a story of how Baal becomes king of the gods by defeating his brother. There's three brothers, Baal, Yam, and Mot, who are the equivalent of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Yam is the god of the sea, and Mot is the god of death. And these are also Israelite gods, because Yam is the Hebrew word for sea, and Mot is the Hebrew word for death. So we know that these are the Hebrew gods. So these are the old Israelite gods. Baal he defeats Yam to become king of the gods, but then he oversteps his boundaries and wants to defeat Mot too. But the gods say that he can't. He has to die. He has to submit to Mot. So Baal dies. But let me step back for a second. First, though, when Baal becomes king of the gods, he needs a temple. And so they want to get a temple. He needs approval from El and Asherah to get a temple. So he and Anat go to visit, and everyone's terrified of Anat. When they go to visit Asherah, she's shaking in her boots that her terrifying children are coming to visit. She says, "Are you here to kill me?" And they say, "No, we just want a temple built for Baal needs a house." And then when they go to visit El, Anat immediately threatens them. She says, "I will throw you down like a lamb. I will smash your skull in. I will make your gray beard run red with gore. I will tear down your house with my mighty arms." And El just takes it all in stride. He doesn't challenge her. El doesn't dispute her. He gives her
She off the chain, ain't she?
what she wants. She says, "All right, yeah, yes, you're my violent and terrible daughter, and she can have a temple." And she says, you are very wise. Thank you. And she goes about her way. And then Asherah, she chooses who's going to be king. Like, if you read the story, El waits for Asherah's choice, and then El confirms her choice. But Asherah is the one making the choice as to who's going to be the king of the gods. And then the Asherah pole stands next to the altar of the gods. It stands next to the altar of Baal, stands next to the altar of Yahweh.
I think there's an interesting, and I don't know why I thought about this. I don't want to throw you off your track. I want to keep going in this vein, but it reminds me of Jacob and Esau. And notice Jacob's mother knew who to choose the whole time, and it was Jacob in this narrative, according to the story. Even with the blind Isaac not seeing it, and he's choosing the one he likes, but really it was the mom who was like, listen, we're going to make sure you're the one. Right. So it's an interesting thing. I wonder if it goes back into some Canaanite stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes to Native Americans too. And I make a lot of connections. So the Asherah pole is a totem pole, basically. It's a carved wooden pole. It's basically just an indigenous people's totem pole. These are really old traditions. So that's what I think the Asherah pole is. And that these traditions are common. They go back to the Ice Age, and they go to the Native Americans. Native Americans have these totem poles too, and the Native Americans talk about Sky Father and Earth Mother the same way. And in Native American traditions, in a Native American tribe, you've got a chief, right, who's a man, who's going to be the patriarch and the war chief and everything. But that chief gets chosen by a council of women, and then the council of women choose the chief, and then the overall tribe has got to consent to the choice. So it's a democracy. But it's not democracy with politicians and voting the way we have it. But it is a form of democracy, and so the Council of Women chooses the chief, and it's their choice, and it's why the women have wisdom. The men bring strength, the men bring order and authority, but the women bring life, and the women bring wisdom, and that's where the father and mother balance each other out. And
so
they both have their
I threw
role.
you off of your Canaanite thing, though. I definitely like the way the story's going.
And so then you go back to Canaan, or right back to, I want to finish the Baal cycle with Anak.
Yeah, that's right.
After Baal dies, so after she challenges El and threatens to smash his skull in, which is a pretty remarkable threat when you think about it, because I don't know of any other character in any other mythology that goes up to the Sky Father and threatens to smash his skull in and gets away with it. But then after Baal dies, Baal needs to submit to Mot, who's god of death, who's Hades. He dies. Anak is so upset about it that she comes and confronts Mot face to face, grabs him by the collar and screams, "Give me back my brother!" Pulls out her sword and cleaves him in half with her sword, grinds him up with a sieve, burns him with fire, and feeds him to the birds. And in doing so, restores Baal to life and majesty, and she puts Baal on the throne because she destroys death. She can destroy anybody. She's utterly unstoppable. Is right. That's about how I read it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Is she hot? She is, in fact, hot, but hot in, if you go for your women soaked in blood.
Typical man. I wonder if she's hot.
And like ready to kill you as soon as fuck you.
I
think that's actually key to Baal's power. Baal is the only one brave enough to go seduce Anak because everybody else is utterly terrified of her.
And you cover all of this in here? You go into
I cover all this. I mean, there's some stuff. I mean, that book, I'll be the first to admit, that book could be more tightly wrapped. I was kind of like still writing the book the day my deadline came. And I just sort of put down the pen. What's that?
I said there's tons of images throughout the book.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to ask, you said the Phoenicians and the Canaanites were the same people.
Same religion.
Okay, so the religious stuff is the same. I was going to ask because from what I understand, the Greeks come from the Phoenicians, and then the Israelites came from the Canaanites. And I would need an expert, obviously. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't want to pretend like I know. But
I think the Phoenicians and the Canaanites are the exact same people, and that the Greeks know the Phoenicians, and the Greeks are influenced by the Phoenicians, and the Greeks interact with the Phoenicians all the time. And there's definitely overlap between the Greeks and the Phoenicians, but because the Greeks have colonies over in Turkey, in Anatolia. So they're totally interacting with each other. And so this is where you can see that there is, in fact, crossover between the Greek mythologies and the biblical mythology because A, they're totally contemporary with one another. They're the exact same time period. All the languages are both. So one thing that happens in the Bronze Age collapse is the old writing goes away. Cuneiform stops being used after 2,000 years, and hieroglyphics too. They both completely stop being used. You've got a couple centuries where there's no literacy at all. And then the Phoenicians invent the phonetic alphabet that we use today, based on vowels or based on syllables. There's no vowels, but the 22 magic symbols that correspond to sounds is invented by the Phoenicians. And the Greeks and the Hebrews both copy it to create the Greek language and the Hebrew language, and both forms of writing appear at the same time. So the oldest Greek writings and the oldest Hebrew writings are totally contemporary with one another. It's around 850 BC. It's way.
So this is an interesting. I got to pause just to say why I think this is interesting. I have a gentleman named Russell Gamirkin, and Russell Gamirkin comes on. He wants to date the Septuagint, the Hebrew Bible.
Much I agree with what somebody says.
Yeah, some of the stuff is there, but when you see this Greek connection in the Hebrew Bible, what in his mind, he kind of says, well, we know Hellenism in that period, we can see the influence and we can give a good justified reason why there's the influence from the Greek world to the Hebrew world. One of the biggest the stronger arguments he has is when you see Platonic influence, that's when it's really like, okay, we could really date something like that. But when you get into like, here you have King David in armor going to fight a 1v1.
You already know. You already know. It'll be done in a minute. It'll be done in a minute. You already know. But good stuff, y'all. Good stuff. Just talking about when the little history before the Bible and giving you some context on where women stood. All right, let's get back to it.
Greek idea and not a Hebrew one, and here he is facing Goliath, which was also a Philistine, which is from the Greek world, if you will, or to that region, Phoenician, Greek, whatever. It's obvious there's some type of collision, even in the myth of this stuff, where their cultures are colliding or even somehow trying to work out.
I mean, they definitely all know each other. Like they're interacting with each other. Like they are not. These are all through the Bronze Age. They were sailing around and trading, and for thousands of years, the entire Mediterranean coast, wrapping around from the Levant around to Greece, and throughout the whole Aegean. All these people, they all interact with each other constantly, with Egypt too.
It's not crazy to think that.
So there's totally cross-culture influences back and forth all over the place, for sure.
Wow. Okay. Did I mess you up on your going through this whole?
No, I've got so many different. I've got so many different threads. I can go for an hour.
And I don't want to throw you off the bell cycle, but ultimately, in the end, the point is they're all the key players that become enemies within the Bible are clearly part of the story, and they're all removed from this as time goes by, as reforms take place, as a patriarchal system sets up, as marijuana, if you could use the term, is being kicked out the door along with its goddess. And is there in your research, and look, we're no experts. You're like me, man. We love this stuff. You have far more knowledge in terms of diving into this stuff. But my point is, as a layperson who's delved into this, did you see a direct connection between your study of marijuana and the goddesses of these societies, especially the Hebrew one, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of was a discovery I made, was that, I mean, I say it repeatedly in the book, the places where the cannabis grows thickest are the places where the goddesses are strongest. So you see that in India.
You heard that?
You see that in Lebanon. You see it with the Scythians, who are the nomadic, like the Dothraki. You see Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Dude, I love Game of Thrones.
So the Dothraki are a lot like the Scythians, nomadic horse lords, running around. Except the Scythians were even more badass because they're the Amazon warriors. The women are trained to ride and fight alongside the men, and so they have women on horseback that are warriors, and they are one of the last matriarchal cultures where they have a high goddess, and they're led by queens, and they're warrior queens. Cyrus the Great, who frees the Hebrews. People always leave out the part of the story that, how he died later on in his life?
Doesn't
he went and invaded the Scythians, and he got beheaded, and his head was kept as a trophy by a Scythian warrior queen, because he had killed her son.
Wow.
And so she was vengeful. She kept his head in a bag of wine for a trophy.
If you look at the story of Troy, right, like it's all over a woman. Like she had the power in a way of the whole Troy city, and the warriors come and fight. Like a woman, one woman in the narrative, of course, is the whole reason all of this is going down. So the power she must have had isn't something we see throughout history. I mean, you get hints of it in Esther. You get these kind of like, let's tone it down and make it orthodoxied a little, where we're allowing this woman to be, someone very important. Same thing though with Jesus. Do you think that the New Testament authors are working off a trope somewhat in the vein of what you're saying in the Gospels?
100%. No.
Hold on, two men fighting over a woman, even, and at that point where he's talking about is more like ego. That wasn't a time where they were ruling. That's more egotistical and trying to have ownership over that woman. But yeah, not in that frame.
The whole third section of the book is about New Testament. I talk about the resurrection in there. There's no question about it. The Easter is a springtime resurrection festival of a dying and rising God. It is these old traditions been usurped and co-opted, but it's changed from a nature festival and a turning of the season festival into an immortality festival. And this is one of the key things between the patriarchy and the matriarchy. Matriarchy is all steeped in cycle of life, circular time, resurrection cycles, and the monotheists, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, are always teaching us about immortal life and eternity, and how the immortal soul goes to heaven and stays there forever, and there is no cycle of life. And they're quite, I would say, hostile to cycle of life traditions that
so one's
indigenous
kind
people
of
have.
reincarnated in a way, and the other one is saying permanent residence with Sky Father, if that makes sense.
Exactly. And so they take the Easter tradition is directly taken from all the symbols. Basically, you can see a symbol is either usurped and turned into a Christian symbol, or it's rejected and kicked out. So for instance, I mentioned lions. That's usurped and taken for the men. But snakes, they were the symbols of goddesses. And that's turned in the Garden of Eden story into something bad. But snakes were always good. Snakes were good for Moses. Moses has got a serpent staff that is a symbol of his power and divination authority. And then they put the snake up on a bronze pole, and then in the reforms of Hezekiah, they break down that pole because it was a pagan idol.
So they kicked, the snake was associated with women, kicked that out, make it negative. And the lion was also a symbolization of a woman, but they didn't kick that one out. They converted that one into the Lion of Judah and just made it for men. How about that?
But at the time of Moses, the snake was perfectly good. The snake
Do you
was
talk
great.
about the lifted up of Jesus in the wilderness, or the idea of Jesus being lifted up?
Well,
like
I'm just saying the symbols in general. This is not Jesus per se. This is how in the Garden of Eden the snake turned into something bad when before the snake had been something good.
Mhm.
With Jesus, the Virgin Mary takes over a lot of the symbols of the goddesses, the Queen of Heaven, the dove, but other symbols are rejected. Any of the use of plant drugs, the tree of knowledge is like, to me, just an entheogenic experience. They're talking about cannabis or psychedelics or this use of sacred plants in general. They're saying, don't do it. You can't do it anymore. But as far as Jesus goes, I think the Gnostics have one foot in all these mystery traditions, and that they are. I know I would love to talk about the resurrection. It's a whole topic unto itself, and Christianity. I've got a whole thing on it. My view is that my number one reason for believing Jesus was a real person and why like something really happened back then is that you've got these different disparate groups following Jesus that don't like each other at all, that are totally rivals to one another. You've got the original followers of Jesus who remain in Jerusalem as practicing Jews under Jesus' brother James, all of whom for the most part, get killed by the Romans. Then you've got the followers of Paul, who are a second group that don't particularly get along with the Jews. And then you've got the Gnostics, who are a third group, who are also identified. You've got Simon Magus and Mary Magdalene. So I think that Mary Magdalene was really the one who was closest to Jesus, and she becomes the leader of the Gnostics. And then she's conveniently eliminated from the Christian traditions, the Orthodox traditions, because she's teaching a rival theology. And
see, I wouldn't be shocked if Paul is in the same vein with the Gnostic sects. I say that because in Paul's letters, like if you take Galatians 3 at face value, where he says there's neither male nor female, free nor slave, and then you read later in Paul's letters, there's a lot of people who say this was interpolated. Paul would not have said women remain silent. This is stuff a 2nd century patriarchal Orthodox.
Oh,
Christian
yeah. I think that
mouth. Yeah. So
yeah, Paul is so early on that I don't think these groups are necessarily completely formulated just yet. I mean, Paul is like in the first decade, you know. And so there's elements of Paul that the Gnostics clearly like, and then but Paul and Peter go together, and Peter and Mary Magdalene are rivals. Like that's clear from the Gnostic text that Peter and Mary Magdalene do not get along, and that Peter is jealous of Mary's closeness to Jesus. And ultimately, Peter and Paul end up as partners. So, you know, a lot of the Gnostics like John too. There's a lot of Gnostic influence in John's gospel too. So I don't think that the distinctions are there's a fuzzy distinction, especially in the first century.
Because I could play the role that Peter and Paul were on the same side or not on the same side. You can do that with both of them. And it's like Galatians 3 makes it sound like Peter's giving him a thumbs up. And then he's facing Peter to his faith and saying, you hypocrite, will you pretend to be okay with the Gentiles and the Jews show up and you turn up? And it's like, what the hell's going on? So anyway, this is fun stuff. There's a lot. I mean, I highly recommend everybody to go check this out. If you're into the topic.
I need that book.
I want to do more with you on this. I think that
I really would love to come back anytime, really, and talk to some of the other scholars, because I go through the whole, especially the Book of Kings, and I go through a lot of scripture in there, and I would love to go through it with people.
There's a lot here, and I'm like flying through it right now, but I'd like to get some scholars on here to come check out, you know, some of the things you've said. Fact check some of this stuff, you know, to give their real thoughts about it. Because look, you're one guy in a bubble, right? And like,
why he insulting this man? Talk about when some scholars to come on here and fact check this. Like, bitch,
I've seen a lot of the things you're talking
about. Did my research,
and I don't know. Sometimes we have what they call parallelomania, but I like what Dennis McDonald said. He said the problem he sees today isn't that people have parallelomania. That happens, don't get me wrong, but it's more common people have parallelophobia, and they just want to act like, no, this milieu was working in a vacuum and there was no influence from anywhere else, and this, that. And he's like, no, that's not the case. He's showing there's Greek influence on the New Testament. It's not just the Hebrew Bible, because scholars, I'll give you one thing that I think you'll appreciate this. He's written his thing about mimesis, simply saying the New Testament is literally borrowing from the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid and, you know, Euripides the Bacchae, you name it, mystery, you know, poets and epics and whatnot, and the Hebrew Bible. Well, all scholars across the board, I don't care if you're Christian or not, and I favor mostly guys who are not, because when you get into the Christian side, there's so much bias already making things historical that are probably not, things like that. But when you look into it, these scholars will bash Dennis or disregard him or ignore him or downplay Dennis and say, no. And like one of them will say, and I'm not going to give names, I just want to point out, they'll say, no, there's no mimesis. It's in the air. It's there. It's just stuff in the air. But Dennis said, I don't care. That's fine. If you don't want to accept my mimetic connections, meaning there's a literary intertextuality going on between these other cultural texts and the New Testament, that's fine. You can ignore that. But how come every commentary that is ever written on Mark, Matthew, Luke, or John, or Acts, like almost every single commentary, unless you get to someone who's a critical scholar that's not within Christendom, none of you are pointing out these things. You're acting like they're not there. You're not even commenting on them. So yeah, sure, let's just say they're in the air. That doesn't matter. The trope that they're using, you're not even addressing. The baptism of Jesus with the Spirit coming down, that's Athena flying down to Telemachus to empower him and tell him, you are your father's son. And he empowers him, and Telemachus goes back to his hometown in Ithaca and confronts the suitors and his mother Penelope, and everyone's going, what got into this guy? Well, Jesus, don't we know his brothers and his sisters? And what happened to the guy? Well, this dove, this spirit flew down. I mean, bro, the connections are fascinating. And when you see them, they don't address them. And I wish they did, but they don't. And that's why I have to go to bat for Dennis. If he's wrong about some of these connections, I don't care. At the end of the day, meaning medically, I don't think he's wrong about the connection. I think he could potentially be wrong that they somehow literarily are doing it, because when they learn Greek, they have to know these stories. The point is they're not even addressing them. They're ignoring them. They're ignoring the woman who anoints Jesus's feet with her hair and this oil. And he says, wherever my story is told, let the story of this woman be told far and wide. I think it's Eucaleus in Greek. That's the name of the woman who anoints Odysseus's feet, she suckled him when he was a child and recognized a scar on his heel and said, my master, it's you. And he says, it's not my time. Don't tell anyone. Well, remember when Jesus is like, shh, don't tell anyone. Like, these things are there, and that people are kind of ignoring them. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's the same. I 100% agree. Like, with my work, I'm not above saying that I might make factual errors along the way. Okay. I'm not disputing that my scholarship is 100% perfect, but I totally stand by the broad theme of these patterns, and that you can follow these patterns all the way through, and that when you've got the same symbol being used over and over again, you can trace the meaning all the way through, that it's a common symbol. And then sometimes you see the symbol flip when there's a cultural shift, but then when there's a new set of gods come along, that this reflects a change in cultural values. Like we can see it today, like about racism. Like this is something that is a shift in cultural values from early America to late America. And it would be, it does end up coming down to religion, but we don't need to go in that direction with this conversation. But
I think the influence in America is highly religious. But yes, I'm with you on this. I think there's a lot of problem there. I'm not going to say it's all that, because I mean there's mixed churches and things like that.
It's all wrapped up in this cultural milieu, but the mythologies, they matter. And I disagree with the atheists who think that this stuff is just fairy tales to be dismissed and not paid attention to, because my challenge to the atheists is, if you don't like Christianity, then what comes next? It's
what about an atheist? What about an atheist such as myself, who values these myths, sees them as significant, if I could call milestones of our evolutionary process in our development, and seeing, like where I'm at now, I don't think that you need religion, right? Religion, notice I say this. I believe in things. They're not some metaphysical or some spiritual, or there's really something up in the sky, or there's really something here, or something like that going on. I believe in humanity. I'm a humanist. I believe in bettering our society, making equal rights. I believe in treating each other good, the golden rule. Like, there's certain philosophical things that just are just.
So do you believe in the sky, Daddy? That's the question.
Good and true and noble. But I also think what has been done with these mythologies, it's almost like you and me watch Iron Man. You like Iron Man? I love Iron Man. I love the movies. Robbie Downey Jr. did a great job, blah, 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 blah. You and me might walk out of there, and I feel like I'm in it, like I'm part of it. I know it's fiction. I know it's not literally true. It might be a symbol for another meaning, whatever. The meaning of what it's talking about might be true, but metaphysically, I don't believe these things. At the end of the day, though, we have these myths. We know they're not literally true, but they carry meaning and value. And that I can get on board with. I think if we have myths that we accept, I have a friend who said she believes in Godzilla. And I'm like, literally? She goes, no. My grandson named Hunter, he watched Godzilla, and I realized Godzilla comes out of the water to fight the forces that try to come and destroy and make things off balance. And he tries to balance everything, kind of like the yin and yang. And she said, so I believe in Godzilla. And I'm like, do you really believe in Godzilla? Well, not like that. And I'm like, okay, so now we're starting to look and say, are we getting out of these superstitions and realizing their actual value of what the purpose for these things are? That's a difference to me. Sorry, I have to clarify, because
I think the only lie is to say that these things are literally true. You know, when I went to church growing up, and I was not raised a fundamentalist. I was not taught in church. I was taught to read the Bible, not literally, to read it metaphor and interpret everything. We look for naturalistic explanations. We're Presbyterians, looked for naturalistic explanations and everything. And I was taught in church that the fundamentalists were wrong, that's not the way to read the Bible. You don't read the Bible literally.
I was a PCA Presbyterian and I got excommunicated, but they're like from the vein of like the Puritans. It was some really, really fringe, I guess, version.
No, I know. We could have a conversation about your church background and my church background, because I'd be kind of curious what you guys thought of folks like us.
Oh, you guys were definitely, they're fighting you guys every time we turn around in their conferences, but now they're PCA only. They want to keep it exclusive. You guys were you were not even probably regenerate. You guys were probably just like the rest of the world. There's no difference.
The thing is, it was a very respectable church, an old church in Washington D.C., full of government types, and like very, very respectable congregation. It was not by any stretch a fringe. And everybody there was educated, and you weren't expected to like suspend disbelief when you walked in the church door. And so we were taught to look for natural explanations. So like the loaves and fishes story.
Here are 3 important ways to support your immune system. First, make sure you're eating a healthy and balanced diet with plenty of fruits.
Jesus. We were taught that was a story about that. It wasn't that nobody had any food. So the disciples, all they had was a couple loaves and fishes, but all the people in the crowd, they'd come out for a picnic. They had all brought out their own food because they're not stupid. They brought out their own food to eat because they weren't expecting to get fed. And so when everyone busted out their little bit that they brought out, it was a big potluck, and it was a big lesson in sharing. And the whole thing was just a big potluck. And look how nice it is to have a big potluck when everyone's nice and generous. Look how much food there is when everyone learns to share. That was how I was taught that story. Not that it was a supernatural miracle or anything.
Yeah, and I think that we could be sometimes I feel like when we do those kind of interpretations, we're trying to somehow simplify and make it like, look, it's not that ridiculous. There's also the idea, though, that like Israel, when they were wandering in the wilderness with Moses, didn't have food. And Jesus is the better, newer Moses. Like, do you see? So I take it as it's very possible this is still a miracle type of claim, but it's just rewriting the Moses story with the children of Israel in the wilderness. And when they murmur, oh, we don't have food, how are we going to do this? They're not murmuring to the point where Moses is ready to strangle them. Jesus just does a miracle. Instead of asking God to send down the food, he himself was able to multiply it. And so,
I mean, as far as the mythicists go and saying that, like, I totally agree with the mythicists when they say that virtually every single line in the Gospels can be seen as total fiction and can be seen in other traditions. And there's essentially nothing that's all that original in the Gospels that can't be seen in other literary traditions. And that it's impossible to discern any historical veracity from the gospel. I totally appreciate that perspective. I totally think both things can be true, that Jesus was a real historical figure doing some stuff, and that every line in the Gospels is mythical fiction. I think so both too. Things can be true.
I think so too. I personally think there was a guy, but I have my reasoning. And even in getting into Paul, he was born of a woman. He was born under the law. He was circumcised. And to assume when he was crucified and buried, right? Like all of those things, if you take the mythicist approach that Carrier is saying, it's possible. I'm not ruling out the possibility of mythicism. I'm saying, though, they put all that in the heavens. And to me, it's not implausible to say, no, there's a guy on earth who literally gets killed, and they're searching the scriptures and they're finding these reasonings to apply to him. Here you have him. He was looking in the scriptures. Paul talks about, he finds the gospel in the scriptures. These things are clearly something. I think he's searching in his Bible. He's finding this stuff. He's applying it to his Christ figure.
He's getting him a little off topic, but it's almost over, so I'm going to continue watching it.
Here, which is Jesus. And that could be just as plausible or more plausible to me, unless we had more material saying this happened in the heavens, all of this. It says he came down, right? So the Philippian, I'm just addressing this mythicism thing. The Philippian song, if you will, this hymn, is that he descends, right? Takes on flesh. He comes down and takes on flesh, etc. and then he finally lowers himself below the angels, and then finally goes back up. This is the idea.
They're talking about the aliens, y'all.
Of him coming to Earth and back. I don't think he stopped in the third heaven. That's just me. Whereas mythicists will say he stopped in paradise or somewhere in the third heaven, probably in the sky somewhere. And then he was like born or manufactured, if they want to interpret it that way. He was a descendant of the line of David. He was crucified. He was buried. And then he finally resurrects from the dead. Like all of that happened in the heavens. To me, it's more probable this is something of a guy who really started the movement, and they took the mythology that they already were very superstitious about this stuff anyway, and apply these mythos to their Christ. And then they have narratives like epics created about him. They're called gospels.
That's basically what I believe too, more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go deep into Christian stuff as you do.
You're like way out here where I've never been, and I love it. I love it because I'm like, I can't fact check some of the stuff, but I think what you're doing is fantastic because was the Hebrew Bible always patriarchal that we see? I mean, was it always, was this religion and this culture always patriarchal the way that we see? It doesn't sound that way when you're talking.
I think that the biblical writers are staunchly patriarchal and openly hostile to these other traditions that are in their community, but that
because only the victor writes the story, right?
And I think the Israelite tribe is a patriarchal tribe. I think that these shepherds, because it's all about controlling women's sex lives. To have a patriarchal bloodlines, you have to control.
Are we not in the same condition right now?
Control your wives and daughters' sex lives. You can't have them running around. Yeah. And so in a nomadic shepherding scenario, you can do that. Like a father could actually keep his daughters kind of under control and arrange their marriages and not have them running around. But if you're living in the cities, it's a lot harder to keep your daughters under control when they're just, especially if they got these prostitution temples that are like the most popular place in town. And then, Yahweh is a jealous God. Well, who is he jealous of? Who could rival the omnipotent creator of the universe that he could actually be jealous of? Well, it's Ishtar, where you go to the temple and everybody gets laid. And she has got the most popular spot in town. It is by far the most popular temple. And she's the star of the show. And we probably don't have that much time left, but going back to Abraham and Sumer, Abraham comes from Mesopotamia, right? The Bible says so. It comes from the city of Ur. Ur is right near patriarchal bloodlines. You have to. Well, it's Ishtar, where you go to the temple and everybody gets kind of under control and arrange their marriages and not have them running around. But if you're living in the cities, it's a lot harder to keep your daughters under control when they're just, especially if they got these prostitution temples that are like the most popular place in town. And then, Yahweh is a jealous God. Well, who is he jealous of? Who could rival the omnipotent creator of the universe that he could actually be jealous of? Well, it's Ishtar.
And it's like that now.
Where you go to the temple and everybody gets laid. And she has got the most popular spot in town. It is by far the most popular temple.
And that's how long men have been jealous of women, y'all. Way back then, y'all. Bronze Age. Before the Bronze Age.
And she's the star of the show. And we probably don't have that much time left, but going back to Abraham and Sumer, Abraham comes from Mesopotamia, right? The Bible says so. It comes from the city of Ur. Ur is right nearby Uruk. Uruk was the first major city in the history of the world, the first city to hit 50,000 people, the first city to really be called a major city. And it was a dominant cultural power all through the third millennium BC, for at least 1,000 years. Before Babylon became the power, Uruk was. And the first major temple in Uruk was dedicated to On. On is the same as El. He's the sky father. He's the original sky father, father of all the gods. So the first temple is dedicated to On, and it's an early ziggurat. It's got one level, and then it's got this. It's called the White Temple. It's this gleaming white temple that shines bright, and you can see it from miles away. And that was the first major temple in the city, and it was dedicated to On. But then years later, they built another temple, the temple to Inanna, and it was taller. It was built on a taller ziggurat, and that became the most popular temple. And they even tell a story of how Inanna, who is Ishtar, that she invaded heaven and stole some of her father's authority, and that he let her. And that's the story of how Inanna steals some of her father's thunder and becomes the biggest star in town. and then she becomes Ishtar, and then she becomes Astarte, and that's who King Solomon is worshiping. He's worshiping Astarte, doing the sacred marriage ceremonies with the Song of Songs is from the sacred marriage, and that's who Yahweh's jealous of. Yahweh's got to get rid of these popular goddesses that are stealing his thunder. Everybody wants to go to the temple and get high and get laid and have a good time, and Yahweh's like, no, I don't want you doing that stuff. And
I got
a popular reform.
I got to say one more thing before we wrap up and let everybody know to go get the damn book.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. This is fun.
I'm getting that
really
book.
Cool.
I'm getting that book. I got to have that book. The Goddesses, it's called The History of the Goddesses from the Ice Age to the Bible by Edward Dodd, y'all.
So you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, right? I'm jumping up here in the vein of what you just said, which I find fascinating. Okay. Mark, Matthew, and Luke have a Jesus kind of like, he's a little heavy he's hard for people to want to follow. They're looking at these other gods and they're thinking, these guys are more fun. Dionysus is cool. The Maenads are having orgies out here in the woods. But Dionysus is extremely rough around the edges. He's not a very merciful god. So according to Dennis McDonald, I'm really fascinated with this work right now.
Keep bringing up
he
Dennis.
said the Gospel of John, the first version of it, he thinks it's had 3 layers. They're noticing this cool aspect of Dionysus, and they're like, look, man, the guy is all about orgies and like drunk and like all this cool stuff, but he's an asshole. Like if you don't accept, he's not going to tolerate you. He'll kick your ass. So what they did is they made Jesus a donor deity in this. They made him a donor deity and had him turn the water into wine and make them everybody had much more fun at the party, at the wedding and things. Like they're trying to do the cool shit that the old goddesses were doing and that Dionysus was doing and applying it to Jesus.
Yeah, and I think the same thing with the Virgin Mary, the exact same thing applies, that they would have been having these debates in town, trying to get people to come to their new Jesus cult, and some of the people were responding by saying, well, everybody knows that God's got a mother. Where's the mother? Where's your mother goddess? And so they invent the Virgin Mary out of whole
Wow. I got to get this book, yo.
cloth. And they just, well, he was born of a virgin because that's one of the most cult. And some of the people were responding by saying, well, everybody knows that God's got a mother. Where's the mother? Where's your mother goddess? And so they invent the Virgin Mary out of whole cloth. And they just say, oh, well, he was born of a virgin because that's one of the most ancient traditional tropes
among pagans, for sure.
Yeah, the pagans. Like the virgin birth is not a new story. Like that was Ishtar is called the virgin, Anat is called the virgin, the goddesses are called virgins, the Kadesha are called virgins. Children born to the Kadesha are said to be virgin born, and they had special rights and properties because they'd inherit from their mother, not from.
They say Jesus' grandmother was immaculate conception.
Their father. So the whole virgin birth trope is really, really old. So
and even Islam had to add it to their afterlife with 72 virgins. I mean, they had to have it somewhere in there.
Yeah. So I think I think Dr. Price makes this point too, that there's these layers of responses. You can almost see the back and forth, but you only get one version of the story. You're not seeing the pagan side of the debate. You're just seeing the Christian side. But over the decades, they're having responses, as you point out, like Dionysus is cool. Well, we'll make Jesus a little more cool. The other gods have a virgin mother. Well, we'll make Jesus have a virgin mother, and so on and so forth. So I think, I totally buy into all that.
I definitely hope everybody watching enjoyed this. I surely did. Go get the book, A History of the Goddess, from the Ice Age to the Bible. You guys can get it in paperback. That's what I have, of course. And then you can do Kindle if you want. But either way you do, lots of great images. We'll take a look inside real quick just to show some people what you've done here. Let's see.
I don't know if there's anything on there. I can show my screen.
Right.
Well, yeah, if you've got the images.
That's it right there. You got it.
See, here's the one I was looking at earlier. I was like,
yeah, that's one of my favorite images. That's
really
Artemis of Ephesus. One of the most important. She had the temple in Ephesus was the biggest temple ever built in the ancient world. Wow. It was one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it was dedicated to Artemis, also known as Diana. Who mistress of animals. She's the hunter, but she's unlike Ishtar. She's chaste, and so she's a virgin goddess, actually virgin. And then she remains very popular all through the Middle Ages, and we see her today as Wonder Woman. Like
Look at
Diana
this ugly
Prince.
dude right here. What is up with that?
I know, right?
Jeez.
Right.
This is
Wonder
awesome. So
Woman.
there's a lot in this book, ladies and gentlemen, and I mean it goes on and on and on. Get the book, check it out, let us know what you think. Go to lostgoddess.io. That's the website.
If anyone wants to help me, I'm trying to turn this stuff into graphic novels, and I would love to do a podcast. I haven't been doing a podcast on my own because I just don't have the bandwidth for all the editing and post-production, all this stuff. But I would love to do a podcast with somebody who wants to help me.
Go there, contact him on there. Help wanted, he said, and check him out. Help support him.
If you click on the characters tab, there I talk about some of the goddesses, and you can just click on the top there, just anywhere.
Lots of images, I bet. Oh yeah, that is neat. Yeah, Ishtar.
Wow.
I wonder. That's awesome.
Yeah, Wonder Woman is totally drawn from these traditions. Like we see the stuff right through to modern day.
Ooh.
And Anat is like Kali.
That is awesome, dude. This is a really cool. And there you go. Your cannabis discussion. Elohim El. Oh yeah, you go into all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, everybody go check out the website. That's down in the description as well. I really appreciate you. And of course, if you love what we're doing here, this will be launched, of course, on.
All right, y'all. So I really wanted to share that. Let me go to his site right now, the Lost Goddesses. Oh, that's not it. I'm at the wrong one. I mean, that is it. That's not the one. Yeah, he's pretty dope. And this is his site, lostgoddesses.io. All right. But again, man, this is the stuff they're not telling you. They threw cannabis and the goddess out of the Bible. All right. So I've been on here for quite a while. That was 2 hours. But I feel much better. I feel exactly better, y'all. That was good. That's what I wanted this page for. Fantastically Unfiltered. To let me get my shit off so I could feel much better. If you have anything you want to vent about or talk about, hit me up. Get on this show. I'm going to always keep the link in here, man. And we could talk about it. Like I said, I had that Joker try me today and, bring up all types of nonsense. So I just wanted to go to the root of the problem. Like I know I'm a goddess. Don't get mad at me just because I don't act inferior like the other people that you deal with. Don't get mad at me because I let my strength shine through. Don't get mad at me because I'm living in my true self. Don't get mad at me because I know who the hell I am. And please don't throw no lesbian names at me because I wear that proudly. Okay, that don't bother me. Okay, but I'm gonna always tell the truth and call it like a T.I. is. Okay, so if you want to get on Fantastically Unfiltered, every time I post, I will have the link in, and we can always vent together. I feel so much better, and that's what this page is for. I ain't talk about no business, nothing. You know what I'm saying? I always love business, but I'm a human being too, and I like to vent. So that's what this page is for, venting. So if you see that guy, Leland, you can tag him in this. If you see the other guy, Solomon, feel free to tag them in this. I'll try to tag them, but Leland blocked me. He blocked me. Oh, my God. But anyway, y'all, my mouth stopped working. But anyway, I am going to finish my intro. So I don't have an outro right now. I ain't do no commercials, no nothing. I have to do some different type of stuff for this particular channel. I got all my my business page and stuff like that. So I'm gonna just hit y'all with the intro for the outro. All right, it's your girl Frankie Baby Fantastic. Be sure you tap in because ain't no telling when I'm gonna go live on this page. I'm every Sunday with the Frankie Baby Fantastic show every Sunday at 6. But this is just my venting stuff. So feel free to tap. Hit me up on the YouTube. There is a YouTube page. Hit the bell. Do whatever you got to do, but there's going to be a lot to vent about. And I think I'm going to end up being on this page more than anything for real, because I've been, you can't hold stuff in. Holding stuff in will get you nowhere. You implode or explode. And I'm not going to do either. It's about mental health. So if I have something I need to get off my chest, I'm going to get it off right here. But I'm going to be fantastically unfiltered. You feel me? I'm not going to be over here shaming or bad mouthing people. But again, if you come at me with the words, and I'm going to come at you with the words and a little bit of artistic stuff, I am creating for mental health. You feel me? I'm not one of those people who are going to be beating up my pillow crying because you said something to me. No, I'm going to meet you where you are. You feel me? I'm that type of woman. It's your girl, Frankie Baby Fantastic, and you have just seen the Fantastically Unfiltered show, baby. Until next time, deuce. She's still here. I'm going to use this sound for everything. So, clap it up. I know. I gotta finish the intro. Whatever. Come on. I gotta finish the intro. It's Fantastically Unfiltered. What else can I say? Let's go. I'm still do the show. Come on. It's Fantastically Unfiltered. What? Y'all be easy. Peace.